We're on? Oh, we're on.
Um,
Hello, everybody. This is Cameron from Obnoxious Anonymous. Welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day. Today is Friday, June 15th, 2018. My guest today is Joey. How's it going?
Howdy.
This is,
Portugal just tied with Spain, so I'm happy.
oh, really? Are you going to start
World Cup.
shouting and like doing the wave over
No,
there?
we're
Or?
good. I've settled down now.
Oh, okay. This is rather bizarre. It's been a while since we've done one of these midday
In the middle of the day.
on a
Yeah.
weekday, too. Um, I know I'm catching people off guard because we have no viewers yet. So,
I just tweeted it out, so if you people see it,
well, if you tweet it out, then a lot of people will see it. But okay, now people are starting to come in.
there
That's
we
great.
go.
So before we get into anything Lynchian, let's discuss. Criterion has just announced September's releases. They're going to release Andrei Rublev, which is like this famous 205-minute film that Tchaikovsky made, who of course did Solaris years ago. The Russian version, the 3-hour Russian version. And also they're going to release Ingmar Bergman's Scenes from a Marriage. Now, they already did release it on DVD years and years ago, but they're going to re-release it on Blu-ray in the television 5-hour version, as well as the theatrical 3-hour cut. Same extras. I don't think anything new is being added, but still, it'll be Blu-ray is always better than DVD. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, I love my Blu-rays.
Yeah. So yeah, but I'm always excited when Criterion like throws out a bunch of titles. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that one and that one, but I don't want all of them because nothing breaks the bank more than than Criterion.
That's why you have to wait every 6 months to get that deal.
Yeah, and I remember when Fire Walk with Me came out, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to wait to get it, and it was fine because I already owned it anyway on multiple versions. But then the day it came out, they did like the Criterion sale, so I was like, all right, fine, I'll just pick it up. So, do you own a lot of Criterions?
I have pretty much all the Lynch ones that came out,
Right.
And I have some Wes Anderson ones.
Right. So
Other than that, no.
we just checked your Eraserhead Blu-ray, and you do have the second printing.
I do.
All right. So those of you who have Eraserhead, if you didn't know, the first printing, if you got it originally, you might want to make sure that it says second printing.
It's sort of towards the end of the text above the disc, so you could check there, and it says second printing.
So what happened was when they first put it out, for whatever reason, a shot was missing. I'm not sure which shot, but a shot was missing. So they had to go back and do a second printing. So now if you get that, if you buy it now, it is the corrected version. They still have not corrected Mulholland Drive, but that's another story. Anyway. All right. So before we get going on Twin Peaks David Lynch news, I just want to remind you guys about the Patreon account that we have set up here for Obnoxious Anonymous. Go into the oh god, what is it? The show notes, and it will give you a link, and it will take you to the Patreon account. Take a look at it. If you want to contribute $1 or more a month, that would be greatly appreciated. Help this channel get bigger and grow. And right now, I have a family emergency going on, so anything contributed to this channel will help in regards to that as well. So I want to thank you guys so much for those of you who have already helped and contributed. And I did like a big Patreon giveaway last night, and that went over really well. And so that's going to happen at least once a month, maybe more a month, depends on how many people we have contributing to the Patreon. But each month will be newer and cooler things, brought in, and I'll probably get some studios to like send in like Blu-rays and stuff that I can give away and stuff. Cool. So that'll be a lot of fun. So even if you put in $1, you have a chance of like winning like some really cool stuff.
I'm a patron now, officially.
You are financing me. Thank you so much. It buys you a spot at the table here.
Yes.
So, wow, there must be a lot of people working today because right now we only have 11 viewers. Usually it's about like 50 or 60 by now. But,
or they're watching the World Cup. Who knows?
That's true. That's true. But yeah. So anyway, let's get going on some of this news. There's not a lot of news, but there is some worthy things to discuss and make a video about. First things first, and that is the documentary. I know Catherine, the log lady, has been officially funded on Kickstarter.
Oh, is it officially funded?
Yes. Okay. Let me just refresh to make sure where we are. Yeah, they are nearing $260,000 now. Oh. So they've already hit almost 10,000 more than what they were asking. And now they have a thing on there saying if they hit $300,000, they're going to be giving away like DVD copies of the movie. I hope there's a Blu-ray version. I really do, because like I don't care if it's, if they're shooting on high def. You know what I mean? I want a Blu-ray. I don't want a DVD of it.
I hope when they say DVD, they mean Blu-ray, but
or maybe a combo pack. That would be great.
Because it's not that expensive to print Blu-rays these days. It can't be.
No, it's not. And I really do hope they go that extra mile, especially if they pull in 300,000, because that's 50,000 more than what they were asking for. And while yes, the Catherine Coulson documentary is going to be awesome, it's still a sort of a niche topic, and so I would think that would help. The extra 50,000 or more would help towards Blu-rays for everyone.
I contributed. I was happy to.
Yeah. Which perk did you get?
I did the $35 one. I initially did the 25, and then I boosted it up after he did that interview with who was it? Oh man, now I'm blanking.
David Lynch?
No. It was an interview with somebody else, but now I can't remember who it was.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that
Kimmy. It was Kimmy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I don't know when it got changed, but I remember it said, "I know Catherine the Log Lady" on Kickstarter, but then it got added in parentheses with David Lynch. So I think they felt like they needed to do that to let people like kind of jump on board more.
Yeah.
Because then it says, I find this really interesting. It says, "Be part of the authorized documentary about Catherine Coulson, best known as the Log Lady in Lynch and Frost Twin Peaks." So that makes me wonder, is there an unauthorized version being made right now?
Maybe. Not that I'm aware of.
Because, I understand authorized means, everyone's on board. But to pronounce that in your description makes me feel like there's an unauthorized one currently being made as well. I don't know.
Not sure.
But I just
wanted that stamp on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I did contact them, and I sent them my my interview that I did with her, and I said, "Hey, feel free, use whatever you want if you want to use any of the audio clips from that." So
that's cool.
Yeah, I have no idea if they are, but I just said go for it. If you want to,
make a little bonus thing.
Yeah. If you need anything, just go for it. But anyway, so that's really cool. Millie contacted me last night saying, "Hey, it hit," and it just hit $260,034 as I'm talking now. Over 1,500 backers, and still has a day to go.
Nice.
Yeah. Can you?
By the way, have you seen Millie's the house she's working on?
Oh yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yes.
Just had to say that.
No, it does. It does look fantastic. Yeah. So we'll see what she's going to do with that. But let's see. Can you just imagine if Queen of Hearts had pulled in $260,000? Oh my god!
And then you'd be probably getting a knock on your door.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, though, can you just because you think about the Catherine Coulson documentary, I've had people say to me, "What do they need so much money for?" Well, I'm sure a lot of the footage is given to them, but they still need to get permission from outlets and stuff that because it's not cheap to get stock footage of even if you're going through CBS and Showtime or whatever, even though it's Lynch and Frost show, the companies still own it and they still want some.
That's what he was saying during the interview. Like they need to get the money to get the Twin Peaks clips and stuff like that. So
exactly, and again, it wasn't like Twin Peaks was shot a year ago where just people have tons of EPK behind the scenes footage and that type of thing, so they need those clips. If Lynch was back there just shooting his own stuff, they wouldn't need the clips, you know what I mean? But like
official,
they're stuck having to use 1989 press kits and probably get that clip from the Emmys where she was talking to the log, and
that's been all over the place lately.
Yeah, so it does add up. But I'm glad they were able to get some good interviews and stuff like that. And what was it? I think, what was it that Sabrina Starlin contacted them and said something like, "Will there be a season 4 of Twin Peaks?" And the guy is the magician answered, "Was it only your heart knows already?" Something of that nature.
Oh yeah.
So we all know what's happening.
There's some cheeky stuff happening. over there at Showtime.
There's a lot of stuff happening over there. I don't know, obviously, what, but the rumbling. Listen, the rumblings have been happening for a while. It's just now the rumblings
are bubbling.
It's getting, yeah, it's definitely bubbling up, sort of like the cream corn oil around the hole where Bob goes into the floor. Again, who knows what's going to happen, but something is happening. It's like that line in episode 14 where Cooper says, something is happening, isn't it, Margaret? And she goes, yes. And then that hard cut to the moon, the full moon out there with that spooky wind. Things are definitely happening, which is why I'm trying to get Queen of Hearts going as fast as possible so that it doesn't negate anything that they want to do, because any day now David's going to come out and be like, so I've been thinking a lot about Annie Blackburn lately, and I think it would be good to do something about that. And I'll be like, damn it, damn it, you and because I mean, let's be honest here, there was so much attention with so many of the Save Annie Twitter hashtags and Annie Lives, and then with the last trailer and stuff showing Annie and Laura's house. If he was just kind of peripherally thinking about like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool, that definitely shows you that there is an audience wanting that.
Yeah,
so
it must have hit Showtime's radar and
my goodness. Completely.
I know they check that hashtag. It's not that busy of a hashtag on the off season, but
no, and people aren't really trending that hashtag right now. But for a while, Save Annie was trending. They were almost neck and neck with Showtime's posts and stuff like that. Again, it wasn't meant to be in competition with Showtime. It just ended up taking on a life of its own. So anyway, hopefully when they decide to do a season 4 or they do a standalone thing, hopefully it's I don't know. I just wanted to go maybe in a different direction.
So, never know.
Yeah. Or wouldn't it be great for them to contact me and be like, oh, so let me see what you want to do with Queen of Hearts, and then be like, oh, that actually fits in maybe with what we want to do, and something like that. I would hate to put in all this work and then be like, oh, Heather Graham's coming back, and and I'm just stuck. So
well, we have this fan film now. Not sure what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, this completely negates anything that they wanted to do, and it's like that was never the intention. Part of why I wanted to do Queen of Hearts is because it didn't negate anything that they wanted to do. So hopefully, whatever direction they decide to go in, it still continues to not negate what they want to do. Because I never wanted to do something that was like against what they wanted to do. I just wanted to kind of talk about sections that had never been discussed before.
That's what we were telling people when the campaign originally ran.
Right.
Because people were upset thinking you're trying to be David Lynch.
Well, not many people were upset, but there were the few people, and I was just like,
loud minority.
Yeah, and I was just like, this has nothing to do with what they want to do, and I firmly believe that David and Mark and Showtime they knew that, they felt that. It's like, well, this isn't even in competition. But I think once you see Annie walking up the stairs of Laura's house, it's kind of like, or you see Annie at Jackrabbit's Palace,
it'll trigger something. It
kind of triggers, like, then you get Lynch at the Emmys going, well, I've been thinking about Annie Blackburn a lot. It's like, yeah, I can kind of see that after 8 months of Save Annie trending, and then a month after.
I wonder why, Dave.
I wonder why Annie Blackburn is on the top of your mind right now, David. Oh my God, I love the man to pieces, and I just it just would literally crack me up that season 3 comes out. There's one mention of Annie, no mention of Wyndham Earl, and then so I go, okay, great. So let's do Queen of Hearts, what I've always wanted to do. It's a little fan film, and then all of a sudden Lynch comes back saying, I want to make an Annie Blackburn movie.
We'll see.
We will see. But he's a great guy. I adore him to pieces, and whatever he wants to do is awesome. I just don't want to put a lot of I've already put a lot of work into this and my heart and soul into it, and I just don't want to put even more work to it and then be like, oh well, none of this matters anymore. So
something comes out, then maybe you have to wait to rewrite it or something.
Oh no. That'd be awful.
Yeah, that hurts me to even say.
Yeah, completely. Let me go to live chat and see who is here today. Let's see here. Charlie's here. Hello. Anna's here. Thomas is here. I always say Thomas, but it's Thomas. George. George says, I get to see Mulholland Drive tonight on the big screen. That's great. Nice. I keep forgetting we have a lot of young people that watch this show because I remember seeing Mulholland Drive in the theater several times back then. Let's see. Thomas says, I will see the original film print of Lost Highway tomorrow in the cinema.
That's awesome.
I came very, very close yesterday to doing, and I think I'll probably end up doing it at a later Patreon giveaway. So if you're not on the Patreon account, this will be cool. I'm thinking about giving away one of my Lost Highway laser discs, which would be really cool. Just as the collector's item, I think that would be pretty awesome. Jason's here. He's saying, "What up, people?" Daniel's saying he'll watch later. Thomas says they're going to be screening Mulholland Drive, Straight Story, and Inland Empire next month. Got to see them all. Wow. Make sure you drink like a huge energy drink before Inland Empire, so you can just be a little.
Blue Velvet was really nice in big screen. They played the 35 mil reel.
Yeah. Let's see. Anna says, I guess you can always just tell your version of Queen of Hearts. I mean, your followers know it's not canon, so you could still do it. But yes, it would be frustrating. It's not that of course it's not canon, right? Because it's not official.
Well, yeah.
But the original intention was that, and still is, that if you want it to be canon, it could be, because it would fit in nicely, because it wouldn't negate anything that they were doing. That was the point. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can choose to ignore it as just its own thing. But if you wanted it to be, it would completely fit as of this moment. Now, if Lynch comes out in a couple of weeks after his book comes out and says, I'm going to be making an Annie Blackburn film starring Heather Graham and Kyle MacLachlan, well, then that's a different story. So,
I could totally see that happening too. But
yeah, yes. And I will be just quietly weeping over here. I'll be like, but at the same time, though, it would make me laugh, because I'd be like, well, this small channel with all our supporters, we kind of made such a loud commotion that David Lynch would like come out to say he's going to do something about Annie Blackburn. That to me would be kind of funny.
We at least maybe probably put a bug in his head, and it kind of just like
a bug straight into his mouth and took over. Yeah. And then it would explode out like Judy out of the glass box. And I'll be like, I remember when I caused Annie Blackburn to be made into season 4. Let's see. Jason says, I went from missing your content to not being barely able to keep up, in a good way. Well, we've only done a few videos in the last couple of days, but and he says he will be a Patreon supporter soon. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it.
It's awesome.
Anna says, I've never seen any Lynch film in the cinema, and I want to. George says, Inland Empire has a really great flow on the big screen. Yeah, Inland Empire makes me run to the bathroom too. So anyway.
I do want to see Wild at Heart on the big screen, at least.
Well, you need to see it correctly on the big screen, because I've seen it on the big screen where they don't have the sound up, and it's just like yawn. You have to go someplace where the person there does not give a crap about breaking their speakers and cranks it, because it's supposed to be loud.
Yeah, I don't think any of these little
no. And most of and no offense, but a lot of projectionists, if there are projectionists anymore, because a lot of it is just digital, they're young and they don't really know, that sometimes the best way to watch a movie is to blow out your eardrums. They're concerned with like making sure the bulb isn't turned up to its natural brightness, so that they can conserve the bulb, make it last longer, and things like that. But Wild at Heart is supposed to be cranked up, like
be a rock concert, yeah.
Kind of like when Sailor and Lula are listening to the radio and then he turns up Power Man and they go dancing. That's what it's supposed to be. The whole movie is supposed to be cranked up loud.
I think he said it in an interview or something, that it's supposed to be like a rock concert. It's supposed to just be in your face and loud.
And even people who I know who have gone to Lynch's house and they said, "Oh, we never seen Wild at Heart." He goes, "You need to go into." He has his own private theater, which is awesome.
Yes.
His own screening room. Which, let's be honest here, every filmmaker and film collector yearns to have their own screening room.
I wish.
I have been in a house with a screening room before, and it's pretty impressive. But I don't know what his screening room looks like. But he will not let you watch Wild at Heart in a screening room if you are not like that. Like that Memorex commercial of that guy like being blown out of the chair, you know, that's how you watch Wild at Heart at his house.
That's how I want to watch it.
Completely. So anyway, I just want to say congratulations to Richard Green and everybody over there at the I Know Catherine, the Log Lady documentary.
Yes.
I can't wait to see it because have you seen the I Don't Know Jack about Jack Nance?
I haven't. I was looking for it. I could not find it.
It used to be on YouTube. I don't know if it still is or not, but I don't think you can buy it anymore on Amazon. I bought it. I believe I bought it off Lynch's website back in the day.
That's where it's still linked, but I went to buy it there and it was like it just wasn't working.
The movie is shot on, you know, almost like one of those VHS camcorders, but not the digital 8 camcorders, but you know when you used to plug in a whole VHS tape.
Yep.
It seems like it was filmed on those, but that's what gives it its power is because it's just so like low budget and raw. You know,
I really want to see it.
So that movie will probably never hit Blu-ray, but it's a really nice film, and you know, a lot of it is just people sitting and talking. But the stories they tell are so important and so moving that you are not a human being if you are not at least moved to tears once or twice during that film.
They were saying something about a feature that was on that DVD. I think it was on the DVD about a seance they had. And the woman conducting the seance, or you know, I forgot what they called it. They didn't call it a seance, but she like never had known Jack. She never met him. She never saw him in a movie, and like she emulated him perfectly, and that gave me chills because it's just strange to think about. And they say that's on, or at least like you could hear it on the video. I think it's on the DVD. I'm not positive though, so. Don't quote me, but it was just strange to hear. There's a lot of good stuff on there, I think.
No, there is. And I think that this Catherine documentary will be a nice companion piece with it. I think it will be probably a lot more fancier because obviously it's going to be shot with modern cameras and things like that. But I think it will just in its essence, I think it will be a great companion piece. It sounds like it will be. It sounds like a lot of passion is going into it.
I'm excited.
And I'm not positive, but I think Peter Dom, the guy who runs Welcome to Twin Peaks, is affiliated with this thing somehow because he's really promoting it. And I know he promotes things like this, but I think that he's doing something with it because he was like trying to find pictures or footage for it. So I don't know how he is affiliated, but I think he is affiliated with it somehow. So, you know, good luck to him and the entire team. You know, it's kind of it's both an easy and a hard film to make because it's easy because you just have to get interviews and then find the corresponding clips that you want to use for this and that. It's hard because you have to track down all that footage. But the thing is all the footage they need is already out there. They just have to find it now and be able to write the film around the footage they have. It's what you do when you do a documentary. You don't know what people are going to say in an interview, so you interview them, and then after you do the interviews and you go through them and you pull out your sound bites you want to use, then you write the script around and you tailor the narrative around the interviews that you have, and then use the clips to correspond with their anecdotes. But so it is a lot of work to do, but I'm sure they can do it, and I can't wait to see it. And I mean, with the money they're raising, they're probably. I mean, the other day, it's funny because like a few weeks ago, I was thinking, I retweeted it a few times and I talked about it a few times on the podcast, but I guess I was thinking, well, this is different than like something like Queen of Hearts. This is the Catherine Coulson documentary. Yeah, and while they were asking for $250,000, I kind of was like, don't worry, guys, this thing's going to be funded. It's like, we're going to talk about it. We're going to promote it, but I'm not going to heavily promote it because this is the type of thing that's going to take care of itself. You know what I mean?
That's how I felt about it too.
It's the Catherine Coulson documentary. But then like 3 days ago, 4 days ago, I looked at it. I was like, they still need to raise like $70,000. So I kind of brought it up the other day. I was just like, hey guys, just so you know, it's still looking to, because I was like, how the heck they're going to raise $70,000 in 3 days? We had a hard enough time trying to raise 4,000 in like 5 days.
I had to wear an alien onesie.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like going, okay, well, they're kind of pushing. I hope they make it. But then I thought to myself, I was like, well, even if they don't make it, Lynch will kick in maybe the last, little bit. But then I thought, well, no, because Kickstarter is truly all or nothing. So they would be back to zero. And that would be a complete bummer. So they did it. I think having it say authorized and having it say with David Lynch, you know what? Sometimes you do what you got to do.
Yeah, it worked.
It worked. So I'm glad that they were able to do it. It was getting a little nail bitey for a while. I was like, wow, that's a lot of money to need with 3 days to go.
Short time, yeah.
But now they're $10,000 over with their asking price with still 1 day to go. So I guess we can let's just raise a prediction. Do you think with 24 hours to go, they will raise another 40,000, hit 300,000, or do you think they will come in under $300,000?
I mean, I'd like them to hit 300,000, but I feel like now that people see it's funded, they might not be as urgent about.
Well, that's what happened. Well, that's what happened with Queen of Hearts. Like, yeah. I think it hit like $800 over the thing, and then obviously Indiegogo takes their takes their cut, just like Kickstarter takes their cut too. So they're gonna lose a little bit as well. Yeah. But no, so what do I think? I want them to hit it, but something tells me they're gonna hit like 287, something like that.
I can see that.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously it'd be cool to have the round number of 300, but something tells me they'll hit about 287, something like that. Let me throw it out to the chat and see what they think.
Yeah, I wonder what everybody else thinks. Let me see.
Let's see. Badger says, I know the reasons for you streaming early aren't great, but it's great to be here when you're live. Well, thank you very much. And he says, I hope the channel grows in the way you want it to. Well, thank you very much. Alice says, I live in a room and I'm sitting in front of a screen, which means I live in a screening room. If you don't, you're doing it wrong.
Right about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so poetic. I love it.
One time I had a TV that was too big for the living room. That is, it's nightmare. It's a nightmare because it's like, whoa, I can't, you're like this close to the screen. And
yeah,
so I had to take it back and get something smaller just because it didn't fit the room. Just
That's
because you want
a tragedy. Yeah.
Sometimes you want a big screen. It just doesn't work out.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
No. And
we're at 260, 348 now.
Okay. That's amazing. We've already gotten 3 thumbs down on this video.
Incredible.
Yeah. And people started thumbing down the Patreon giveaway last night too. And Jamie Michelle, she was so eloquent. She's like, she says, if you thumb down this video, you are a special kind of douchebag. So
yeah,
that's very kind of you, Jamie.
I don't understand. I never like thumbs down a video.
I think I have once or twice, but you really gotta be like angering me.
Yeah.
I didn't. Now listen, there was a video last night I watched that angered me so much I just clicked out of it.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just don't watch it. I don't want to give them the view.
Well, I mean, they're gonna get the view by you clicking on it anyway, but
or the watch time if you want to go deeper into analytics.
Exactly. But let's see here. I'm losing my cursor here.
I bounced after 0.34 seconds. Goodbye.
Right. Let's see. Okay, so let's get to this article that came out today. And you haven't had a chance to read it, right?
I haven't.
All right. So this was sent to me by Eric, who has been on this podcast a few times. He hasn't been on in a while. He lives up in the Twin Peaks area. And then he was so disappointed by season 3 that it just made him mad that he lived in the Twin Peaks area because he just passes all these locations all the time. And he's just like, I hate you, Twin Peaks.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, so he has his own YouTube channel called Patreon. Plateau TV. That's what it is.
Okay.
And they do videos from time to time. So if you haven't, go check out his channel, Plateau TV. They talk about all types of movies and TV shows. And every once in a while I make a special appearance and because I have to, sometimes they go so far this way that I have to at least bring them around a little bit. Like because they were trashing the Halloween trailer the other day, and I was like, well, let's talk about some of the positives about it too. So anyway, no, anyway, they're great, bunch of great guys, and we just like to tease each other. But anyway, so Eric sent me this article with the phrase "It's all Mark Frost's fault." So I read it through, and I didn't come to quite the same conclusions that he did, but I figured it would be worth discussing anyway. I believe he's at work right now, so maybe he'll catch up and watch this video later. But this article is oh yeah, George is here saying Eric had a breakdown over the finale. They haven't done a video in months. No, they've been doing videos the last couple of weeks. Yeah, he goes, oh yeah, never mind. Anna says, I only thumb down videos I have an actual real issue with. Yeah. So, all right. So let's get to this article. So this comes out of IndieWire, and it was dropped today. The article is by a guy named Chris O. Falt, F-A-L-T. And the article is called Twin Peaks, Mark Frost takes us inside the 4-year process of writing a 500-page script over Skype with David Lynch. 500 pages.
I know. When I saw that, my eyes just I went numb for a second, I think.
And remember, part 8 is only, I think it says it here, but I think it was only like 15 pages of the script, part 8.
I believe it. Which
makes sense. I mean, there's not a lot of dialogue, you know. But if you think at 15 pages or so out of a 500-page script, and that was a 1-hour thing. All right, so let's get into this article. It says, I'm gonna bounce around through it, but says it's a mistake to assume that Lynch and co-creator Mark Frost's 500+ page script for the 3rd season was simply the canvas on which Lynch painted. Right, so a lot of people believe that Mark Frost, you know, and David Lynch wrote this thing, and then Lynch went off and just used it as inspiration and did whatever he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Now we do know that Frost and Lynch did write it, and then Frost went to write his books. And whenever there was a rewrite, that Lynch was, I believe, primarily in charge of the rewrites, because I've talked with people on the set that have said that, you know, Lynch was rewriting before a scene, and he probably didn't check every rewrite with Frost before, you know.
I'm sure
they filmed. So I believe they probably had a solid script, and then Lynch just, you know, changed things as he went. And we know this because if you watch the behind the scenes, he says to Sabrina and Scott Cameron, his first assistant AD, that I have 18 people or so going to be showing up in the sheriff's station for the big climatic fight. And he says, I don't have a clue what I'm going to do. And Scott Cameron says, well, why don't you take the weekend to think about it? And he goes, I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's not going to be a weekend. I'm not going to come up with something. So I don't know like what the original script for that scene was that Lynch felt that he had no clue what to do with that scene. You know, and it's amazing how this script has not leaked yet, you know, because I would love to see like what originally was supposed to happen in that climatic scene of Cooper running in and Bob and Freddie and all that, right?
I wonder.
Yeah, just, I mean, because it's one, I mean, it would have to be written somehow, but then for Lynch saying he doesn't have a clue what he's going to do means that they must have just scrapped whatever they originally planned for that.
What he means about he doesn't know what he's going to do. He doesn't know how he's going to shoot it. Like, I wonder if like he was fine with the script, but he didn't know how to actually convey.
No, because he says he's going to have all these actors staying around and he doesn't know what to do with them. So maybe, I mean, I'm speculating here, but maybe the scene was supposed to be there, but Lynch started kind of playing with it so that all of a sudden maybe the Mitchum brothers and Candy and all them weren't supposed to all be there. You know, maybe he started bringing more and more people into the scene. And maybe it was supposed to be more of a not quiet scene, but a more intimate scene with just a few people.
Mhm.
He had several in there, right? Because he had a lot of people in that final scene. I mean, so much so that the door to the sheriff's office got widened by 20 feet.
Grew 3 times larger that day.
Right. Let's see here.
I wonder if Candy was in the original script, because then we wouldn't have had that funny sandwich line.
Right. Okay, so says for 4.5 years, the 2 longtime collaborators painstakingly wrote 18 new episodes that balanced the continuation of all the old character storylines. Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, a bit rough.
It's a bit. I mean, because they didn't really. I mean, they don't continue everyone's storylines, right? And also, they didn't write 18 episodes. It's a 500-page script. I mean, it ended up being 18 episodes, but it wasn't like they said, this is where episode 7 ends and things like that. Because remember, when they first were editing it, the original plan was that it was gonna, they didn't know how they were gonna edit it. So like they were suggesting that some episodes were gonna be a half hour long and some were gonna be an hour and a half long, or some would be 50 minutes and some would be 47. It would just depend on where they wanted to stop it.
Yeah.
Each episode. But then they all kind of clocked in around 50 to an hour. So, there was some leeway because they didn't have to worry about commercial breaks, but they still managed to keep it to an hour, which is why I think that while you may be fine with certain scenes like like Candy swatting the fly and that type of thing, I do think that sometimes, not all the time, because I think Lynch made the scenes the way he wanted them to, but I think that that maybe sometimes things were extended just a little bit because they all tried to make the episodes closer to that 50-minute runtime. It's just an idea.
Yeah. No, I could see that.
I mean, not where it would kill the thing where Lynch is like, I'm going to extend this just because I have to extend it. I don't think that was the case, but I think it was like, well, if we cut this shorter, we're going to be at 45 minutes, but if we put in the version you want, we'll be at 50. So we're still under. He'd be like, all right, let's leave the long version in there. That's what I think.
That makes sense. I agree with that. Like him using or shooting longer scenes. Because
I've played with some of the scenes like in editing just to kind of see if you can keep the integrity of the scene and cut it. And I don't mean cut it where you are trying to just cut to the chase, but I mean like cut it where it's like where you just snip out like half a second here, half a second there, not 10-15 seconds, but like just little pieces. And it's amazing how just a little bit more tightness elevates some of those pieces that sometimes seemed a little slow.
Yeah, I believe it.
Again, I'm not complaining the way they did it, but again, just keeping the integrity, but just taking out half a second here, half a second there. It's amazing just how all of a sudden what seemed to be
a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm looking at my camera right now, and I seem to be a little bit jittery. Am I coming out jittery to you or no?
No, it's fine to me.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's see here. So I really did think Cooper would have come face to face with Mr. C. I think a lot of people were just a little surprised that Bluesky shot him, and then that was it.
Pretty much.
He probably would have sat back up, like in part 8, where he just gets up if Cooper hadn't run in and put the ring on him and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
that scene makes sense. I'm just curious. It could have gone so many ways. It just
that's the thing. That's the thing, right? I mean, there's infinite possibilities how this thing could have wrapped up in that episode, in that scene by itself, right? All right. So he says, they also wanted to explore a vast and layered world that flowed from the first 2 seasons, and at the same time made sure the new material folds into the same cosmology of the old. Frost and Lynch dug into the mythology of evil that permeates their story world, while delivering complex ideas in a novel-like script that is actually highly structured. I firmly agree.
I do too.
That actually is one of the best write-ups I've ever heard about season 3 right there. Because I feel like
that really was the core of the return, I think.
Right. So he says the starting point. And see, what I like about this is this is an actual like interview with Mark Frost and not just like a one-line soundbite that makes him sound like a jerk. You know, like I like Mark Frost, but sometimes when they take like just a soundbite from him, I'm like, what does he mean by that? That sounds kind of pompous.
Yeah.
But when you have presented with like a real article with him, well, okay, great. You get to see a little bit more of what he means. So he says, Mark Frost says, the anchor for Twin Peaks: The Return, or whatever you want to call it, and starting point came from the moment we revisited the last episode of the original show. Now, I've heard this before. I personally think it's a bunch of BS that Lynch and Frost didn't remember that Laura Palmer said, I'll see you again in 25 years, because that's the most BS thing I've ever heard in my life. Partly because Mark Frost has been going to these USC screening things for years, and they've been showing that episode for years. People have been asking him all the time for 25 years, what does this mean? Or are you coming back? So they couldn't have forgotten about it. Go to the original pilot of Twin Peaks, and where the Red Room was part of reality and not a dream, you know, in the international pilot, it says 25 years later.
Yeah.
When it right. So give me a break, right? They all remembered that it was 25 years later, but it's just a good hook. It's just a good thing to say. Oh, we were watching the last episode, and then when Laura
what
said
a goof.
when Laura said it, we got really excited that we were on the right path. It's like I
mean, I kind of believe that Lynch probably forgot, but I don't know about Frost.
Well, if Lynch forgot, it's I can't believe that he would forget, because the reason why she says I'll see you again in 25 years is because it's a riff off the international pilot of it saying 25 years later Cooper would be in a red room with Laura Palmer. That was the only reason why Laura even says that in the final episode.
I don't know.
Well,
as somebody that's forgetful, I could
yes, but that's a pretty big plot point. That's like saying like, well, you remember what Richard when Ben Horn said during one of the one of his Civil War statements. I mean, yeah, I get that you want to remember that, but I'll see you again in 25 years. I'm pretty sure you'd remember that, especially since how many fans probably over 25 years asked them that question.
Every year went by and they asked again and they asked again.
I still remember. I have it on. Remember MySpace? Oh my Lord! But I remember somebody shared a video on MySpace years and years and years ago of David Lynch talking at UC Berkeley, and some poor boy stands up and goes, "Hi, David. I'm a big fan of Twin Peaks, and I was curious. Are we ever gonna have a further adventure of Agent Cooper?" And David Lynch's response was, "Next question."
Oh wow.
And I remember thinking, oh God.
Ouch.
Well, you know what? I know that sounds dismissive, and it is dismissive, but at the same time, I think David Lynch was still really, really hurt that, that it seemed to have,
that didn't pan out, and then on the air didn't pan out. So I would have been upset too.
Well, and Fire Walk with Me and all that. So, he's just like, next question. But I remember just reading that going, oh, damn. to quote Mandy, oh, damn.
Wow.
Okay, so it says, Frost instinctively thought the story would need to go beyond the town of Twin Peaks and would require new locations, people, and storylines. The world of the first 2 seasons and how the characters had evolved in 25 years would need a larger context. While the first 2 seasons dealt with the theme of evil, the original show was conceived in what Frost calls a far more innocent time. I would agree with that too.
Oh, yes.
So he says a lot of the things that informed the discussion for the first year was the global meltdown of 2008, 2009. The reason Vegas came to mind for me was all these images of vast tract housing developments that had been built in the anticipation of this endless boom and were then abandoned. They were like ghost towns, but 3-year-old ghost towns. I'd never seen that on screen up to that point, and I thought, there's an image to work with. It's key that he says there's an image to work with, because that's how David Lynch works, with by images. So he's talking about 2008, 2009, kind of Big Short territory. We're now almost a decade from that. Do you think that was, looking back, do you think, I mean, we can see what he's talking about and how that fits into everything, especially when she's talking about, we're the 99 percenters and all that stuff, right? Do you think that was a good hook for them to start with? Because I mean, the Vegas thing is cool, but there is a lot of attention brought to Dougie and Jade in these abandoned houses, and these guys driving up the street and like trying to steal cars, and the little boy living with the drug mom and stuff like that. I mean, if you think about season 3, there's almost more play on that street than there is in Twin Peaks, right? So I'm just curious, like, do you think in the grand scheme of things of season 3, did you think that was a wise move on their part to devote so much attention to the housing crisis, kind of the underlying housing crisis?
I think it worked, because there's just like the bigger theme, like of evil and kind of sickness and decay, and I think it worked because it's like this all this optimism and money and capitalism and families, all this was supposed to happen. This was supposed to be like this big beautiful place where families lived, and it's supposed to be a warm neighborhood, and it's kind of just like it's all a facade, and it's kind of sick and poor, and everybody's struggling. I think it was apropos.
Yeah, because for Eric, but I'm under the impression that Eric looks at that as like, well, we wanted to see Twin Peaks, instead we got Mark Frost's dissertation on the housing crisis instead. And I would disagree. I think that in a way it's just the milieu that it is taking place in, but I don't think it's necessarily, I think there is an aspect to it where it's commenting on it, but I think that's sort of the that's just like the layer that the story is being placed upon. It's just in terms of context. Now, if Lynch was doing Twin Peaks season 3 by himself or with another writer, I don't think we go anywhere near this material. I think this is definitely something that Frost brought to the table, and then Lynch went with it.
See, this is the stuff I really liked about season 3. So I'm kind of on the opposite. Like, I'm the opposite way when it came to this stuff. I really loved it.
What part are you talking about?
Sort of like the Janie E stuff in Vegas, and
well, I would argue that in a way, the Janie E Dougie stuff is the most fleshed out part of the entire season 3, because it's the part of the story that we not only spend the most time with. But the reason why people say Naomi Watts gives a great performance, and she does, don't get me wrong, but the reason why people can say that is because she actually had a character to play, and a character we actually spent time with. Because a lot of the other characters that we are introduced to, they're in it for a scene or two and they're gone, or, and while, don't get me wrong, I think they did a great job with them, Naomi Watts was actually given a character to play for almost 16 episodes. I think she actually had something to work with. She actually had material to work with.
Yeah. I think people underrate that whole thing of the return. I think it's so underrated. It's such a beautiful thing too.
Well, the thing is though, I think people are saying they're bored. Some people are bored with it because there's no real layers to it. It's, Dougie is very much, he is who he is, right? And then Janie E is who she is. So there's not, you can read into some things, but for the most part, it's just a story that is what it is, right? So I think some people are bored with that, saying, well, why do I have to watch him do all these shoots and ladders when we know it's just going to lead to this one thing? Just fast forward, you know what I mean? Let's just fast forward and get to him talking to his boss, and arrest or whatever they're going to do with Tom Sizemore, and just kind of move on from there. But if you look at the Straight Story, if you look at The Elephant Man, if you look at some of other David Lynch's works, not everything he does has to be read as multiple layers. You can, some of his work is just, it is what it is, and you can just enjoy it for what it is.
Exactly. That's why I love The Elephant Man so much. That's one of the movies that made me a Lynch fan. At that point, I was just playing around and watching the movies. Yeah, they're good. But then, like, Elephant Man made me really invested in him as an artist, to be honest.
Right. And as I say to people, you may not like the Dougie Janie E section of the film of the show, whatever you want to call it. I'll get into that in a little bit, but you can't argue that they're not well made scenes. And so that's kind of the thing about it, is like, I don't think there's really a bad scene in season 3. I think you could make the argument that scene didn't belong in season 3, but if you just isolate each scene unto itself, there's really not too much you can pick apart, because pretty much the acting's great, and I mean, you can say, well, maybe they should have added an extra line of dialogue here or there or whatever, or this looks a little too much TV-ish, and I wish they went for a more cinematic look or whatever. You can make those things, but just looking at each scene, you can't say that they just kind of phoned it in. It doesn't feel phoned in at all. I don't think Lynch was just sitting in his chair, just like, do whatever you want. And, because if you see behind the scenes, he's like, so like, yeah, wanting to make this happen.
I think it's a really good story about a family at the end, like dealing with all this stuff. Like at the core of that,
right?
I think that's what it is. I felt it.
And they actually did something that I thought, they surprised me, because I thought that at the end of the film, I thought that they were going to leave us with the question of which Cooper went back to Janie E.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to leave us the thing going, well, because obviously they show us that obviously the good Tulpa goes back to Janie E. But I thought they were going to make us go, did Cooper send the good Tulpa into the FBI and he went back to Janie E? Or I thought they were going to leave us with that kind of a question. I'm glad they didn't, but I personally thought they were going to do that. The way it was heading, I thought, yeah, probably. Okay, so let's keep going here. Okay, themes surrounding materialism and the danger of what happens when the money runs out started to open the door to new characters. Obviously, the fact that Frost, Lynch, and the characters were all 25 years older also meant the two writers were naturally dealing with themes of time and mortality. Now, the interesting thing about that is Lynch already kind of made his epic about time and mortality called The Straight Story. That's what the entire film is about, and it's brilliant. So it was interesting seeing him tackle the territory again. I would argue The Straight Story is much more emotional than season 3. I think season 3 sometimes has sort of a distance between you and the material. But I do think there are tremendously moving scenes in season 3. I just don't think the entire season 3 is designed to be sentimental like The Straight Story is. So yeah, I think that's an aspect to it. Okay, so it says, really, or Mark Frost continues, says, really the baseline of human experience is that we aren't going to be here forever. So for me, it put me in mind themes of mortality, friendship over time, and what really matters. And then we had the opportunity to go back and look at this very large set of characters and see what had happened to them and what their lives had done to or for them, and then wrap it all up in a larger context. Now, what's interesting, he says, we had the opportunity to go back and look at this very large set of characters. Well, I would argue that the vast majority of the cast of characters of Twin Peaks, they're not there, right? So yes, I mean, you can look at these new large set of characters that you're bringing to season 3, but when he says we had the opportunity to go back and look at this very large set of characters, because there's not many characters from the original series in season 3. You know what I mean? I would say for the most part, it's all new characters, right?
The two we probably spend the most time with is Albert and Gordon from the original. You think?
And I will maintain and argue that it is actually the true lead of season 3.
I would agree with that.
I'm sorry, say it
I
again.
mean, he was. I said I would agree with that. He was the one, giving thumbs up and talking about donuts and coffee.
Well, no. I mean, but he is the one that, I wouldn't say propels the plot, but he is the one that keeps pushing towards moving closer to wherever we're going.
No, yeah.
Because Cooper, for 15 episodes, is trapped in the Dougie persona.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody had to keep pushing it. And it's interesting that even his name, Gordon Cole, is the thing that triggers Dougie out of it. So I remember when we were talking to Sabrina, I said, so when you're reading the script, when did it dawn on you that David Lynch wrote himself the lead role?
I remember that, yeah.
I
mean, I'm okay with it.
No, I think it works. I think that it doesn't surprise me that Showtime is pushing for him to get an Emmy nomination. I think the thing that might keep him from getting an Emmy nomination is there's no real ending for his character in season 3.
This is true,
right? So there's no. It's like the lead, and then Cooper walks through the door, and that's it.
What's the last thing he says? Just Coop?
I don't remember.
Because he goes Gordon, and then he goes Coop, and I think that's the last thing he says.
Oh, okay. Well,
or maybe not. Maybe not. I don't remember.
Okay, so Frost continues. That was really my big objective. We said we've got to get out of the town. We've got to enlarge the scope of the canvas. And we've got to make this about more than just a sleepy, creepy little hamlet. We want to make it a bit more like contemporary life. Okay, do you agree or disagree? I mean, obviously they did that.
Yeah.
Do you think that was the right move for them?
Yeah. I think it makes sense.
I thought it was fine for them to broaden the scope and make it worldwide. I thought that was good. I think where people might have a problem with it is when we did go back to Twin Peaks, it seemed like an afterthought sometimes. I'm not saying it is, but in retrospect, sometimes it seemed like there was all these epic things happening in all these other places. And when we went back to Twin Peaks, there were like we were just kind of popping in and out, and there wasn't like a character arcs to follow. It was just kind of, we were just popping in and out and seeing how this little sleepy town had like gone to hell, basically for the most part. So I think if maybe if they had written something in Twin Peaks that was a little like, every time we came back to it kept getting, I don't want to say bigger, but just something where it was like the story was getting more and more intense in that area or something, that maybe people would be okay with going so big and then coming back to Twin Peaks. But the fact is, every time we came back, it's still, there was stuff happening, but there was also stuff not happening. And you know what I mean? Just kind of, I think it frustrated some people. Like, I still think that the people who were mad about Dougie and all that, that they wouldn't be mad about Dougie if Cooper had come back, even when he came back in 16, if Cooper had come back and then kicked ass for like the last 3 episodes or whatever.
That would have been beautiful.
If he had done that, I think that people would have forgiven a lot of Dougie stuff, because they'd be like, well, we're heading towards something big. The fact that Cooper just kind of comes out of it and it doesn't do a lot, I think frustrates them more. Like, well, we have to suffer through Dougie and then nothing happens after that. Whereas I don't think you again, I enjoy the Dougie scenes for what they are, but again, if they had just, I don't know, just kicked Cooper into overdrive in those last couple episodes. And I mean, yeah, he does big things, right? He goes back in time. He saves Laura Palmer. Those are big things. But again, he like runs into the sheriff's room and says, "Are you Freddy? Get him." Like maybe if it had been a showdown between Cooper and Bob or something like that, or Cooper versus Mr. C or something like that. And, I mean, I know that's not David Lynch's forte, but I think that would have really helped with, bringing the audience along. But sometimes I feel like Lynch and Frost are so determined to not meet audience expectations at all that they're willing to do things just to defy expectations.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
And sometimes you have to sometimes you have to give in to a little bit of fan service so that you bring everybody along.
I think the whole "I am the FBI" scene was like, okay, you guys got that. Now let us do whatever the hell we want for the rest of this.
Yeah, and
That was the moment. Yeah.
I know people really like that moment, and it's cute. It's just, to me, I always feel like it's a little silly. It's a little on the nose. I know it's supposed to be, and I'm sure it's supposed to be. I But he still doesn't seem like Dale Cooper in that moment. He seems like the cartoon version of Dale Cooper in season 1 and 2. Yeah, because even with like,
I'm driving or something.
Well, that doesn't bother me so much, but the whole thing of like, Harry, you got the coffee on? That is not Agent Cooper. It's still like a cartoony version of Agent Cooper. I think I would argue that the only time we see Agent Cooper for real is episodes 1, 2, and 3.
I kind of get why they did that, because it's like he's like a kid. He's like all gleeful that he's out and he's able to like see everybody and go talk to Harry and stuff.
Yeah, but how
it
about
makes sense? But it is kind of like character.
No, I think that he would probably come out and be like, Harry, where's Annie? You know? I mean, that's why he went into the Black Lodge to begin with. But he just wonders what the coffee. So anyway, let's continue. Again, I'm not complaining. I just think it's I'm trying to represent all sides and get the conversation looking at it from all perspectives.
I think people know we both love it, so.
Right. Okay. So, then he talks about them working on the script. He says in the first year that Lynch and Frost worked on season 3, they never wrote a word, but rather talked regularly about fleshing out new storylines. Since they decided to write the whole thing together, they didn't put together a writer's room. Makes sense? Now, this is something that I agree with wholeheartedly with Mark Frost about, because people have been arguing, is it a TV show? Is it a film? Is it a TV show? Is it a film? It's like, well, yeah, they filmed it as one thing, but they cut it up as a TV show. So it is what it is. But Mark Frost, I believe him when he says this. My words to David were, I don't think this is a TV show or a movie. We're going to be filming this as a novel on film.
Okay. I like that.
Don't you agree?
Yes, I like that so much better.
It plays much more like a novel.
That makes that context makes so much more sense. So much more sense.
He says novels have the luxury of beginning slowly. You have to grab the audience by you have to grab the audience by the throat in the first 30 seconds. It's let's take our time. It's a value that has been almost lost in our culture. Good stories take time.
Yes.
He says Frost also knew that while they had notes of various story arcs that needed to be completed and characters to introduce, he didn't want to work from an outline. Now listen to this. He says part of his experience with writing novels was to let intuition play a larger role and leave room to discover material along the way. He then compares himself and Lynch to Lewis and Clark. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Exploring the Missouri River and detouring into various tributaries, not knowing where they would lead. All right, well, there you go. There's season 3 right there. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's cool to hear, because I also hate writing to an outline. So that's a little encouraging.
But I like I like this idea. Is a TV show, is a film? No, it's a film version of a novel.
That's probably the best context for it.
There it is, season 3. Mark Frost just dropped the mic on that one. Okay, so writing towards the Lynchian says Frost knows his collaborator is a master of creating mood, visually and orally. While in the midst of their back and forth Skype calls, he would often notice a look come over Lynch's face, and he could tell his co-writer was visualizing the scene. Let me tell you something. If Showtime wants to make like a billion gazillion dollars, they should literally like re-air season 3, not as the way they do where they do like the marathons. I would do Twin Peaks: The Return, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, cut them up into hour-long, ready for this? Skype conversations. So like if you, instead of airing episode 5, they air the Skype conversations of Frost and Lynch
I
discussing
would
episode
love
5.
that.
That
I would pay for that. I really
would. That would be like if Lynch and Frost listen. I know they should have recorded I bet you they did too, in case they forgot something. I bet you Frost recorded all of them. I wouldn't be surprised. Because I mean, when you're talking all these big ideas, you're gonna forget something, right?
Oh yeah.
But that would be one of the cool. Listen, they gave us all that behind the scenes footage. Wouldn't it be really cool if they just released, edited down, like maybe 30-minute things of them discussing each episode, not in retrospective interviews, but watching them, flow out an idea, and one of them going, okay, I like that. I like aspects, but let's maybe this, that, and watching them create each episode. Listen, if I was in charge at Showtime, this is the kind of thing that I would be bringing up to them. Like, people would kill to see this behind the scenes.
Now I'm just like off imagining what that world is going to look like after watching all those Skype conversations. Right. That would motivate the hell out of me. That's for sure.
And you would see plot threads or ideas for characters that never made it to the show. And probably things that they shot for the show and didn't, use ultimately. I think that would just be one of the coolest and smartest things they could do. And if they didn't do it for season 3, they should definitely do it for whatever they do moving forward.
I agree.
And since we know people from the production watches these videos,
wink, wink.
I'm putting it out there, everybody. I'm putting it out there. And so anyway, all right, let's continue on. Frost says, David works in a very intuitive way. Duh. I've known him long enough and I've worked with him frequently enough, along with being an avid moviegoer, that I have a pretty good sense of what he's going to do when he starts musing like that. See, that's what makes me think. I would love to see Frost say something and then watch Lynch take a puff of a cigarette and get that look on his face where he's like, yeah. Like, I would love it. Okay.
You could probably screenshot one of those looks and get it framed for your wall.
Yes. I think that would be one of the greatest things ever. It's like when people in the early 80s had like John Lennon, New York City shirt, that poster up everywhere. I would love to have a Frost Lynch Skype call look on my wall. And it'd be like the moment Mark Frost mentioned White Sands.
Oh my God.
So anyway, so now the article gets into that. Mark Frost points to episode 8 as an example of how this aspect of their collaboration worked. Frost had been advocating the need for an origin story for the evil that they had been depicting in the world of Twin Peaks. So he had been advocating for it. This is interesting because David Lynch, like I said, he advocated for it too for Fire Walk with Me. He really wanted to do this for Fire Walk with Me. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that he wanted to do it for Fire Walk with Me. Mark Frost wanted to do it for season 3. And then they came together and said, okay, we're going to do this. The discussion turned toward the testing of the first atomic bomb in White Sands, New Mexico. And it was clear something larger and even more profound was happening in Lynch's head. Frost says, I mentioned White Sands, and what if something like this happened? And again, it's all metaphorical, but what if something ripped a hole in the space-time continuum and opened Pandora's box, and things unanticipated and strange came out of the box, just like in the myth? As we were writing those pages and he was visualizing what we were going to see in those explosions, I think it helps for him to articulate for himself what kind of imagery he's seeing. Because once you get past the narrative part of it, it's all about the imagery. Mm-hmm. The half page of description of what Lynch saw in those explosions turned into 10 plus minutes of screen time. And the entire episode was based on 15 pages of script. Mark Frost says, the creature we saw being born and crawling into the mouth of that young girl is the origin of the evil we've been dealing with for 27 years. All those images are described, but the way in which he brings them to life is rather sublime. It's an extraordinary hour of television in which David stepped it up to give this incredible gravitas that you can't just write about. Now, what's interesting is that he says the bug crawling in the young girl is the origin of evil we've been dealing with for 27 years. When but that takes place at a time before Leland Palmer had been possessed by Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how he says 27 years, because he's not equating, a lot of people said, why is Agent Cooper saving Laura Palmer, but he's not going back to White Sands and stopping the whole thing from happening and stopping Leland from being possessed by Bob? It's interesting that, like, they're not dealing with the 40 plus years of evil. They're only dealing with the evil that has happened since Laura Palmer died. I think this is key.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not talking about the evil that from White Sands onto that point. They're talking about the 27 years from Laura Palmer dying till now.
Are they okay? This is just me rambling, but are they saying the world has gotten a lot darker?
Yes.
Since maybe the early 90s?
Yes. I would even argue that's true in real life. Like, I mean, whether you are following the story or not following the story, I mean, you can just tell the themes they're dealing with in season 3 is because the world does seem like it's gone to hell since 1990. And part of that is because of 24-hour news cycles. I will throw that out there, because everyone has to just be louder and louder and call each other names, and so you just create this fever pitch where you just feel like the world's going to end at any minute. That did not exist in 1990.
Yeah, I was going to say the reason now I think it seems that way is because there is a lens on everybody and everything always.
Right. And also, like, Facebook, right? Like, there's always been kidnappings. There's always been horrible things that have happened in this world. The difference is these stories are now coming across your feed. So
Yes.
It makes every single person, even though if it happens in Missouri or in Sweden, it comes across your news feed. And so you think that all these things are happening in your town.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's creating a world in which everyone is paranoid. And it's definitely, I'm not saying Facebook is the blame. I'm just saying that, like, this kind of environment, the social media environment in which everything is just thrown in your face all the time, is creating a world in which we are highly suspicious of every single thing, person, environment. So yeah, it's interesting. That they're not talking about the entire history of evil in this world. They're just talking about, and not even the evil from White Sands that got spawned by White Sands. They're talking about the evil that happened after Laura died. That there was always evil in the world. There was this thing ripped into the space-time continuum. But once Laura Palmer died, that's when the world really went to hell. Although I would argue that I wouldn't say it's when Laura Palmer died. I would say when the doppelganger left, because that is true. That's not like Leland Palmer possessed by Bob running around. That is the personification of true evil being unleashed into the world, and him just being out in the world is bringing upon illness, death, decay. Not only in people throwing up, but in terms of neighborhoods and cities living in poverty. I mean, half the people in Twin Peaks live in motorhomes.
Yeah, and I think that's why Frost also did that sort of, stretching it out to Vegas, because you could see that's also affecting that, probably in New York.
Well, I think that the doppelganger being out is not just affecting Twin Peaks, it's affecting the world. I think that's just the thing it's saying. It's like true evil is out in this world right now. And so it's bringing down the whole world. Okay, so it continues on. The major thread that Frost and Lynch wanted stringing season 3 together was built around the desire to delve more into the character of Agent Cooper and his journey. Mark Frost started to go back and look at Greek mythology like the Odyssey and the character's journey to get back to who and what he was. Cooper at the beginning of season 3 is like Odysseus cast on some foreign shore, having lost a sense of himself. Yep. Sure. I would agree with that, to the point where he's even looking at a purple ocean, right? Frost says, we all feel that to some degree or another at various times of our life. And how do we deal with it? And in this case, how does he reunite himself? How does he put himself back together? If you want to talk more thematically, you are stripping a character down to the nub. You are making him a baby again, and he has to learn a whole new way of being. From a psychological standpoint, you can say this is a guy who has never integrated fully with his shadow self. He says, David is not psychological. He doesn't even want to hear about it. But to me, that's what the story is about. And Dougie just cracked us up. It was so much fun to write Dougie. Well, obviously they stretched out Dougie from episode 3 to episode 15 as even a joke, with the Cooper's room and stuff like that. But, they're saying that Cooper, people say like, that's the shadow self. The doppelganger is a shadow self. Well, or they say, Richard is the character, quote unquote, Richard that Cooper is at the end of season 3 is Cooper mixed with his shadow self. And I disagree with that too, because the idea of your shadow self is in you all the time. So Cooper in season 1 and season 2, that shadow self was always in him. It just, he just denied it or didn't acknowledge it.
He was terrified of it.
Right.
That's how I saw it.
So maybe it's not that the quote unquote Richard isn't Cooper and the doppelganger. Maybe it's Cooper acknowledging the doppelganger inside him now. You know what I mean? And now
I agree with that.
And now they're one and the same. He's not denying, he's not suppressing that part of him. He's allowing it to live and breathe within him as well as his good side. It's just an idea.
Confronting the confusion, the fear, the not knowing, which Cooper before would he would just barrel on. He would just say, everything's okay. I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. This time he doesn't know. And like you could see it.
Right. And then he says, we're stripping the character down. We're making him a baby again. He has to learn a whole new way of being. It kind of reminds you of like Harrison Ford and Regarding Henry or something like that. Like take a character that's very sure of himself and strip him down. And some people may look at that and be like, well, they're making fun of the character. I never took it as they're making fun of Cooper. I took it as it's another way of exploring Cooper's psyche from an even more innocent point of view. Like he used to walk into Twin Peaks and be like, what kind of trees you got going, growing around here? And I think I saw a rabbit, and all that. Now he's reduced to drawing chutes and ladders. He's just walking around with his coffee. And it plays as humor, but I think it forces you to kind of look at the character in a different way and reinterpret the character.
They made him human.
Right. Well, I think he was always human, but
he was like almost a robot, like a lovable one. But he was just like too sure. He was almost like a cartoon, even as Dale Cooper.
All right.
As we knew him.
Oh, Joey.
I love it, but like he's like a superhero. Like a lot of people see him that way.
That's only because that's the modern interpretation, maybe. But like back in 1990, nobody looked at him as being a superhero. They just looked at him as being like, like he was a modern day Sherlock Holmes. I remember in the first season, he says a thing about, talks about he has some trouble in his love life before he starts shooting at the firing range. And that was like the first moment where we get an inkling that Cooper even had a backstory. Up until then, he's just this new guy who comes into town and he's going to help solve the crime. But I don't know. The only thing that I would say is it says, Mark Frost says, how does Cooper reunite with himself? How does he put himself back together? Well, we don't really see that in season 3, really, right? Because he kind of just walks in and puts the ring on Mr. C, and that's it. Yeah. But maybe the whole quote unquote Richard section is where he's putting himself back together by being truly half and half. maybe that's what he's getting at. I don't know.
I can see that.
But yeah, he says David doesn't believe in it. Well, David might not speak it, but he has to. He's portraying that visually, I would say. David might not be, wanting to discuss it in terms of words, but I mean, everything Mark Frost is saying, I can draw visually points of what David did to express that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, so
that's interesting.
It is. All right, now my screen is frozen.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. All right. So this is fun. I hopefully. Well, this is gonna be fun. I'll have to pull this up on my phone then.
It's just interesting. I don't totally mean that Cooper is like a superhero, but like there are moments where you wonder if he's like real. He's just, it seems impermeable to a lot of things that happen until you see his points of vulnerability, like when he starts shooting and stuff like that.
I guess. But I don't know. I just never took him as being that's why when Audrey says to him, "There's only one problem with you. You're perfect."
Yeah.
And they do this cut to not like yes, but if you knew the real thing, you would know that that's not true.
And then
can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I think I like lagged out a little bit. I think.
All right, hang on.
Am I back on screen or
no? Sorry, I got to close this tab out.
Okay.
Because I think it's causing trouble. But I got it pulled up on my phone so we can discuss it. Okay. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. So,
good.
What were you gonna say? And then I'll continue on.
I was gonna say moments like that, like especially with Audrey. I see it as him not addressing those issues as well. I mean, it wasn't like warranted for whatever the plot was, but
remember, she's also an 18-year-old girl. Why are you gonna pull her into all this nonsense?
This is true too.
I mean, listen, sorry, I snorted there, but he should have maybe, but then he didn't know Wyndham Earl was going to come after her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Imagine like a context where he actually spoke about Wyndham Earl a little bit earlier. What would have changed?
Imagine if the show had spoken about Wyndham Earl a little earlier, what that could have changed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they did in the second episode of season 2, but they didn't really.
He didn't talk about that.
He didn't talk about it till later. Okay, so says. Go ahead.
I was going to say maybe when we do our rewrite, we could work that in.
Well, remember our rewrite was going to bring in Laura Palmer, and we were going to deal with this at the back half
the
of
origin,
that.
Right?
Yes. The origin of it, which I still would like to do this summer when things start cooling down a little bit. Okay, so it says that Cooper's journey was a major thread tying season 3 together. McLaughlin, according to Frost, was the only cast member allowed to read the entire script and not just the scenes in which he appeared. Frost also admits that figuring out how Cooper's Odyssey would end was not something he and Lynch discovered until very late in their 4-year writing process. And even then, Lynch was rewriting the ending up until the last night. As I've said before, Balthazar Getty was on set, and they did not shoot anything with him. Okay, I want to make that very clear. They did not shoot anything with him, but his trailer was there. He was on set. So I would say, again, we don't know for sure, so I'm speculating here. But since we're dealing with the Tremans, and Balthazar Getty flipped the coin and did these magic tricks, I think it's safe to say that Red is the grandson. Listen, there's no other evidence against it.
I mean, the majority of us thought that, I think.
Right. But we didn't know for sure.
Yeah.
And now since they didn't shoot with him in that scene, you can't say that's canon that he is the grandson, but I think that that's where they were heading. with that character, and that Lynch decided not to go with that because maybe he felt that was too on the nose, even though he felt like I am the FBI is not on the nose, but whatever. But at the same time, though, imagine if Alice Tremon and Balthazar Getty had been in that final scene of the show at Laura's house. See, I think in a way that almost would have strengthened it, because it would have brought that element of the story together and not just left Red as this character that shows up for about 3 scenes and then disappears forever.
And that apparently Shelley has a big thing for.
Right. Because then you could claim that in Fire Walk with Me, because Shelley comes out and sees the grandmother and the little boy walking away towards that you could argue that the boy had his sights on Shelley from that time. You know what I mean? I mean, you could make that call. But anyway, so Bo, I know that Lynch was rewriting that scene and what they were going to be saying to each other at the door up until the last second. So I would love to have seen what the original script had for that final scene, and like just to kind of see how much it changed.
Oh yeah,
you know,
if only we had our hands on that.
Eventually, it will come out. Eventually,
I hope so.
So Frost says the idea for that last episode came in very late. The natural rounding off point would have been Cooper braving, and you might even say tempting fate, and trying to go back and erase the original sin of the death of Laura. And then you realize there's a certain amount of hubris involved in an act like that. But when you add in that theme that was so important to the Greeks, hey, buddy, don't presume that you can mess in the gods' playground. You are tempting fate. There are untold consequences that attend every act of hubris. And that's where we ended up with our ending.
Okay.
Now, I've heard him say this kind of nonsense before, and that's how it plays, as nonsense. This makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it would make sense because he was dealing with Greek mythology in terms of the Odyssey and all that from the beginning. So, but the problem is, here's where the problem is. You have a beginning that's dealing with Greek and the Odyssey, right? You have an ending that's dealing with tempting the gods and Greek tragedy. But from episode, I don't know, 5 to 16, there's very little Greek in there. So you have a beginning that's strong in Greek mythology, an ending that's strong in Greek mythology, and then the rest of it is contemporary America and the problems with the financial crisis.
I wonder if the booth things in the Roadhouse were in relation to any Greek myth stories, like the itchy armpit girl. I could see that being in mythology.
I mean, you could maybe say they're like the sirens, but they're not tempting anybody. They're just talking about little vignettes.
Yeah.
Maybe if they were like out there enticing guys, or because. I mean, or maybe that's why Richard Horne attacked one of them. You know, he's the merman on the rocks that just will, you tempt him, he'll grab you by the throat.
I'm sure there's stuff there. I wish my knowledge of Greek myth was a little bit deeper, but
yeah. So anyway, that's how the article ends with him just saying that there are untold consequences that attend every act of hubris, and that's where we ended up with our ending. Here's the thing. Okay, see, Mark Frost is a writer. He's thinking of these things. He's dealing with Greek mythology. This is what he's interested in at this point. So that gets into season 3. Is it truly an act of hubris to do this? Like, is it an act of hubris for Marty McFly to go back and reunite his parents? You know what I mean? So I think that while it makes sense, I do think it's a writer's conceit, and it's a strong ending. Don't get me wrong about that. It's a very strong ending. But it seems like something that a writer comes up with and says, let's go in this direction, as opposed to, it seems like something that's being thrust upon the story rather than the story unfolding that way unto itself. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like instead of letting the story evolve into that, it's almost like the writers are saying, we want to push this part on the story.
Yeah. Because, I mean, yeah, I get, there's nothing that indicated Cooper would do something like that.
But
At least to me.
But even if he did that, Cooper, I almost said Kubrick. I don't think that even if Cooper does that, I think context is key. And I don't think that while it may be an act of hubris to do that, to go back in time and save a girl, I don't think Cooper did not have the problem that a lot of Greek heroes have, which is, I defy you gods, I'm going to do this. Now, if Cooper had said that, like, I defy you firemen, I defy you, Judy, agents of the Black Lodge, or I'm going to save Laura Palmer and I'm going to show you guys that, that I'm going to save the day. And then this happened. Yes, I agree.
Well, wouldn't it be Judy in this case?
What do you mean?
Wouldn't he be defying Judy by like pulling Laura out of that death?
No, true. But I'm saying he doesn't have that moment in Greek mythology where you purposely defy the gods and shouting at the heavens, I'm going to do this. You can't do, you know what I mean? And then causing the 40-year flood or something like that.
Wouldn't that maybe have been Jeffries then? But he failed, or I mean,
no,
you can't say he failed.
Jeffries is the one that turned back the time form. Yeah. So I think if Cooper had done that, if he had just been like, I'm gonna, this world's going to hell, I'm going to stop it from all happening, I'm gonna reverse time, I'm gonna save Laura, I'm gonna change everything, and then this happened, yes, I agree, that's an act of hubris. But I don't think Cooper went back to be like, I'm tempting the gods, I'm tempting fate. I think that he went back to try to do the right thing, because that's what Cooper does. Cooper.
Yeah, like in his heart of hearts, that's what he went to do.
And I think that's where the disconnect is, right? I think that what Mark Frost is talking about is fine. I think it works, but I think you have to write it towards that ending. You can't just put that ending on something that's going. If it's going this way, you can't have an ending that's going to go this way. You have to write it to hit that ending. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I'm just saying it touches it, but it doesn't touch it.
Because the Cooper we know would do this just because he thinks it's what's right. If he has the ability to, right, he will.
Now, see, let's say he went back and he saved Laura. And then the fireman pulls him to the lodge and says, you should not have done that. Mm-hmm. And Cooper goes, well, I was trying to do the right thing. Yes, but now you've caused these consequences. Okay, that would fit this, you know what I mean? Like that punishment would fit that crime.
Yeah.
But the punishment that they got fitted with does not equal what he went in to do. Like, again, if he was shouting to the heavens and shouting to the firemen, shouting to Judy, I don't care what you guys do, I'm gonna save her. And then this happened. Yes, that ending we have of them stuck in an alternate year and wherever they are, that fits because he's defying the gods. Like purposely defying the gods.
Mm-hmm.
But it almost seems like it's a great ending to something but it's like it doesn't quite touch.
I guess they kind of, not enough, but they kind of indicate to that in that moment that Gordon has where he says he talked to Cooper and Jeffries about this ultimate evil. So that's like the only real context for that we have.
And let's discuss that moment real quick, because he says he talked to Major Briggs and Cooper about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that puts it. Oh my God, I can't remember the episode. Okay, but it's when Gordon Cole comes back to Twin Peaks and Cooper's still in his plaid shirt, and Gordon says, here's your gun, Coop. Welcome back to the FBI. And then the next episode is Gordon in the Double R Diner talking with Shelley, and then Bobby comes in and he kisses Shelley, that type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means that the meeting between Cooper, Major Briggs, and Gordon Cole had to happen between those two events. And that was not something that happened between those two events. Because Major Briggs, he wasn't kidnapped by Wyndham Earle yet. But I fail to believe that between Gordon flirting with Shelley at the Double R Diner in that episode and Cooper and them going, let's go to Owl Cave, to Gordon hanging out with Shelley and kissing Bobby that they had a discussion about Judy and pure evil.
Yeah. We have to suspend our disbelief for a second, I guess.
And I think that's one thing that really upset Eric, who brought this article to my attention today, because he just thought that was a weird thing to kind of bring up in episode 17 is, oh, by the way, guys, remember that evil? Yeah, we've known about this for 25 years and we've been putting this plan together and that type of thing. It's like show, don't tell. And that's usually Lynch's style, is show, don't tell. And here's Lynch in a hotel room telling.
With his face on, with that face that I imagine is like his Skype face, that whole like staring out into.
Now, don't get me wrong. I thought it was great because I love when Lynch tells, because he never tells. So it was like, to me, I thought it was fantastic to hear him just spell it all out. I was like, thank you. That's fun. That's great. It's something I don't ever get to see and hear. Awesome.
You know why? Because Lynch doesn't tell, but Gordon Cole does, because he doesn't get the situation, as we know. So he has to kind of tell him, like, spell it out for himself.
And he even makes erection jokes too.
Yeah.
after blowing away a tulpa.
That's why I appreciate Gordon Cole even more in this season, because Lynch, I think, does a good job of separating himself from Gordon Cole. To some extent.
I think Lynch is Gordon Cole, because the way he just like, thank you, Warden Murphy, and things like that, like that's definitely David Lynch.
Well, yeah,
you know. Sure. Anyway, let's go back to the chat and see if anyone's.
There's some good stuff here, so hopefully.
All right, let's. What, in the chat?
No. I mean, what we're talking about. This is,
okay.
This is meaty stuff that we haven't touched on in a while.
So. I know. Let's see here. I'm scrolling through. Crazy Beat says, I think it's very clear that season 3 was largely made up of Mark Frost's ideas. I wonder if he was on set for any of the shooting. He was, if you watch the behind the scenes. Let's see. Sean says, are the scripts out for season 3?
I wish.
No, they're not. Let's see. George says, why watch Fight Club if you know the twist? It's about the journey, not the destination. Well, I always shut off Fight Club about an hour and 45 minutes into the movie anyway, because I can't stand that twist.
When I was in high school, I loved Fight Club.
I mean, I love the last scene of Fight Club, but that twist is awful. I mean, like, I think, does it work? Yeah, it works. But it works only if you think about it. Like if you watch that first hour and a half, it doesn't quite.
It's a little more palpable in the book.
Right, that's what I mean.
I would say.
But I would say the first hour and a half does not set you up with Tyler Durden is, something else. I think in retrospect, yes, you can see it. Yes, they should show the flashbacks, but there's no, except for those little little things.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real indication that there's not two people in that room.
I'm curious what they did with the comic book sequel. I haven't read it.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm not saying Fight Club's a bad movie, but I remember seeing it in the theater because it came out almost like a week or two after The Sixth Sense, which had another twist. And when Fight Club came out with that twist, the whole audience, I mean, I was in a theater with 1,000 people, groaned. They all were like, "Oh, come on!" They all groaned, and then 25 minutes goes by. And then the ending hits, and the ending's fantastic. And again, this movie came out in 1999, which means that if it had come out in after 2001, that ending never would have been released with all the buildings falling to the ground.
Yeah.
But the problem is that 25 minutes between the twist and the ending was an audience groaner. I mean, they all were just like, ugh. Yeah. And then they were back on board for the final scene. But I've seen that movie numerous times. I've watched all 4 commentaries. I really like David Fincher's work. I think it's a really great film. But I think they, much like we were talking about how the ending of season 3 totally works, but it doesn't quite touch it so that transition from where Cooper is to the ending is completely seamless to the way Mark Frost wants to tailor it. I would say the Fight Club does the same thing. I think it's very strong. I think it's got a strong ending. But I think Fincher needed to just go into that first hour and a half just a little bit more, so that in retrospective in subsequent viewings, you would completely see the Tyler Durden twist. in there.
I think that twist should have been downplayed a lot. Not to get too off topic, but
yeah,
like it was just too, I don't know, over the top with like him shooting, whatever. I think maybe if he just like went away or they had a conversation, a well written dialogue, maybe that would have served it better.
I don't know. Again, it's like you can deliver the endings you want, but you have to make sure that what you've set up is paving that way towards the ending. You know, otherwise otherwise it just comes out of left field. And yeah, you can say, well, this thing, yeah, but when you like every time you watch it, the twist still is like shocking because the movie doesn't quite set you up for that.
Yeah,
twist.
the book is a little bit better about that, when you know he's losing his marbles.
Right. Let's see here. I think people are just kind of getting in.
It looks like we have 50 people here. Over.
Oh yeah, that's cool. See, someone says, I think Cameron should play Mr. C in Queen of Hearts. Great. Thanks. Someone's name who I cannot pronounce says, Joey, nice shirt. Did you guys watch the World Cup?
I did.
Nick Skarnick says, thanks, Cam. That was my opinion, too, about Cooper at the end. Richard's here. He says, hey, everyone. Richard says, writing an outline works as long as you're not a slave to it. It evolves as you go along, and you end up in a slightly different place than you expected. Very true. Let's see. Richard continues saying, Jack Bauer should have been on the Blue Rose Task Force. That would have been a great crossover episode.
I mean, I would have loved Stanley to be in a scene.
I really think that they should have gotten Kiefer Sutherland in it. You know, that would have been great.
Stanley.
Let's see.
Caffeine's a drug. Nicotine's a drug.
And George says, too bad Mark Frost killed off Sam Stanley to alcoholism.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Shoot. Oh, man.
Let's see here. George says David Lynch needs to host a late night show. Daduda says Cameron, let's do a script reading of Ronnie Rocket.
Maybe someday.
Cynic Kill says I'm more interested in Queen of Hearts than season 4. Well, that's quite shocking to say that. I appreciate that, but you know, I want all Twin Peaks, even Queen of Hearts and season 4. Let's see. George says, man, that would have been insane if Balthazar Getty had shown up at the end of part 18. Yes, it would have been. And again, that wasn't like some crazy thought of like, well, maybe we should try this. And I mean, he was on set, ready to shoot. And Lynch said, nah, we're going to go do this other thing instead. But he was in character on set, ready to shoot. And I don't think he would have just shown up and been like, hi, I'm Red. You know what I mean? I think it would have pulled all the Treatment stuff together.
A cool thing they could have done is instead of having that whisper scene at the end during the credits, just have a coin flipping endlessly.
That would have been cool. It would have been cool too if they were walked back on the street and then they turned and saw Red on the sidewalk, and he does the little boy thing from Firewalking with the snap of the finger, and then Cooper says, "What year is this?" And then that'd be the end. Like,
man,
like that would have been cool too.
Or at least get that same sound bite of like the snap, like that fire sound.
Yeah. Senate Kill says Wally Brando was a high point.
I still love hearing that story of them shooting that scene with Michael Cera, and it was just one take, but Lynch was like, that's great. Let's just do one for safety.
Same thing with the Freddy scene. Not the Freddy monologue.
Oh, right.
Remember he said that he did two takes of it only. George says, I used to be hardwired and conditioned to the traditional structure of narrative. Then I watched David Lynch films, and the rest is history. Yes, but you know what? David Lynch, maybe not recently, but David Lynch does adhere to a narrative structure. Eraserhead does adhere to a narrative structure. Elephant Man, Dune, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks.
You could almost say he kind of, I guess, pioneered his own a new kind of structure, because now things are considered Lynchian.
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, people said Hitchcockian, Spielbergian. I mean, I mean, he had a way of being able to create a narrative structure and bounce off it, but always come back to it.
Hmm.
Then, from I would say Inland Empire on, he's into this whole going back to even beyond the grandmother, like back to Six Men Getting Sick and the alphabet of just throwing just complete images on with no narrative structure and creating a narrative structure from what he shoots. So in a way, it just makes that anything can happen, which is great. But the problem is that when anything can happen, then there's nothing that can surprise you sometimes, because if anything can happen, then there's nothing, you know what I mean? You need to have some sort of normalcy to
Yeah.
bounce off from. Otherwise, it's just, what does it matter? Like Inland Empire. Do I think Inland Empire is a bad movie? No. But the problem is that 90 minutes in that movie, nothing that happens past the 90-minute mark, if you cut it out, would change the overall effect that Inland Empire has on people. Because that movie is tailor made to be like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes long. And the fact that it's 3 hours it just tests the patience.
I mean, if you watch it, it's a lot of Lynch having fun with his new camera.
That's what
I mean, not to downplay it,
no, but
that's how it feels.
A lot of it is like, I got this new technology and we can shoot anything. And, does Inland Empire warrant itself to be the longest film that David Lynch has ever made? I don't think it does.
I mean, he spoke about like the limitations of film, so this also kind of lends itself to those longer scenes. He's like, we're not wasting film stock, we're just filling up room on a hard drive, which are affordable. Why the hell not shoot in a longer scene?
No, I agree. I agree. And again, it's like, if Inland Empire had a strong enough story like Blue Velvet, or I don't know, Lost Highway or Wild at Heart, yes, you could warrant a 3-hour time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is that movie, the story that Inland Empire gives you, I don't think that it, like I said, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I think that it purposely tries to test the patience. It's almost like David Lynch tried to make a Harmony Korine film or something like that. Because it's just like, he must have known. He must have known. Maybe he thought after Mulholland Drive, this was his act of hubris, of like, I could just put out whatever I want to at this point, because after Mulholland Drive and The Straight Story, people are back on board with the David Lynch brand. Yeah. And then he's put out Inland Empire and was like, ugh. And then 10 years later, we get Twin Peaks. But I mean, I remember at the time of Inland Empire, he talked about how great this new technology was and how this is going to free him up and he's going to be shooting things all the time. And then he basically became Willy Wonka and disappeared for 10 years.
I mean, Twin Peaks is like the perfect combination. This new season is the perfect combination of all that.
Oh, it is. And the funny thing about season 3 is it has more in tune with Inland Empire than it does with Twin Peaks in terms of structure, and how sometimes you didn't know which reality we were in, or what whether we were in different
dream or outside
right
reality.
What was the town they were living in? Vegas, right? Rancho Rosa. Whether Rancho Rosa was even a real place, or whether that was an alternate timeline or whatever,
bubble or something.
Right. And that was the thing about Inland Empire is, after about the first hour of that movie, you don't know where you are in that film, which is fine, and that works. But it works but I mean, the problem with it is that it just because there's no structure like Blue Velvet or Wild at Heart or Twin Peaks, whatever, underneath it, or even Lost Highway, and anything could happen in Lost Highway, it tested your patience, because you were like, well, if anything can happen, then there's nothing for me to cling to. There's no characters to cling to. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to get invested in.
See, and he was able to do that with the new Twin Peaks because we already had
built-in investment.
Yes,
exactly.
That's why it works so well.
And that's why I think that while they wanted to make Twin Peaks, don't get me wrong, I also think there was a part of David Lynch that said, this would be a great way of bringing in other ideas of things that we've been wanting to do for years, and we can just use the Twin Peaks brand to put it all out there. And I, as a storyteller, say, yes,
Yeah, me too. I loved it.
It totally works because everybody wins. Everybody wins. You know.
And I watch it. I watch his stuff selfishly too because it definitely motivates me. It gets my brain going to make stuff. So, and just seeing what rules he brings to the table, or lack of rules, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of encouraging.
Right. Cinekill says Inland Empire had similar issues, but to me it works way better than The Return did. Maybe that says something about me, but I'm more drawn to the mystery of that story.
Do you think you think sort of he implied people, or he kind of suggested that people might be attached to these characters because of who was playing them? Like they would be attached to Laura Dern or Grace Zabriskie.
Well, I think also bringing in Justin Theroux back from Mulholland Drive,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, but the problem is that we didn't really get to know the characters in any great way before he pulls the rug out from us.
Yeah.
And I think that what he didn't understand was that shooting with that camera was going to push us. That was already going to create a disconnect between the film and the audience. And he needed to really give us a story in that first hour to really bring us in. Like if he had brought in a Sandy and Jeffrey or something like that into Inland Empire and then pulled the rug out from under us, okay, fine, because we're invested with those characters. But I don't think people really cared about whether Laura Dern got the part in the movie. Like I think the idea of a cursed film production is a great idea, but it wasn't really explored. It's a great start to a film, but then it just kind of abandoned it and became its own.
It was a smattering of ideas, and that's how it comes across.
Right. It feels
not in a negative way, but
no, but it does feel like 3 hours of internet shorts strung together. But I would say that if Criterion puts it out, and eventually Criterion probably will put it out, I suggest that they put all the rabbit shorts on there. I want to see the deleted scenes, if not put back in the film at least, and make it 4.5 hours long. But at least remaster those. Put Lynch 1 and Lynch 2 on there. Put all the extras from Inland Empire on there. I have to say though, I think it speaks volumes that Inland Empire is not available in the U.S. on DVD or Blu-ray. I'm not saying that.
I haven't watched in a long time.
I'm not saying it's a bad film. I'm saying that, listen, there is a renaissance right now with David Lynch. All this stuff's going on. You would think that would be reissued, and it hasn't been.
Sure, it will be.
It will be. I know, but I'm saying, isn't it funny that it hasn't been so far?
And when did that come out?
2005.
2005. Okay, so it's been 13 years.
Wait, no, 2005. No, I'm sorry. Don't get wrong.
Mulholland Drive came out in 2001, right?
Right. I think it was. Yeah, it hasn't been 2000. It must have been 2005, maybe 6, but I think 5.
2006.
I was 6. I was trying to think because I was with a previous girlfriend when I saw that movie, not my wife. But it's been a while. It's been over a decade, and and even the Blu-ray overseas doesn't have any of the extras that the U.S. disc had. So whether you love Inland Empire, don't like Inland Empire, or you just like me find it a fascinating curiosity, I think it is interesting that from a business point of view, they still have not put it out on Blu-ray here in the States because there must have been something. There must be a reason why they haven't put it out yet.
I'm interested. Is it even streaming anywhere?
No,
I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
So that tells even more.
And now David Lynch owns that film, just like Eraserhead. He owns that film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's entirely up to him to put it out or not put it out. And I think it's interesting that he's chosen to not make it available. I don't think that he hasn't made it available because he thinks it's a bad movie. I think he's hurt because that movie, from what I understand, it cost the least of all his movies because he primarily financed it himself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the only film he's ever made that did not make back its money, even though it was the cheapest film he's ever made.
Yeah, that's gotta burn a little bit.
You're right. So I think there is a part of him that's just like, you know what? Like you would think with all the Twin Peaks, news and everything like that he would be like, let's put out Inland Empire again, because people are going to be wanting to consume all things Lynch, and he hasn't made that choice yet.
I would totally get it. I'm sure a lot of people watching.
Listen. I may talk back and forth about it, but if Criterion announced it, so we're putting out in September, I'd be one of the first ones to buy it, because like that's one of those movies where I almost want to. I keep going back to it because it's the one film of his that I haven't cracked the code and figured out just exactly why he made certain choices with that film.
I've really it's been a very long time since I watched it, so
yeah.
But
I will say this flat out: if you love it or you hate it, it doesn't matter. If you were a true David Lynch fan, you would own that in your collection. Like I have it in my collection, So I'm not speaking for Joey because he doesn't have access to it, but I'm saying like when it becomes available, I think every David Lynch fan should own it, whether you love it or hate it.
The second somebody announces a pre-order, that done.
Right. It's the one film of his that I like the least, but I would, again, tell every Lynch fan that they should have it in their library if you're a completionist.
I don't even know if I could really comment on it because I haven't spent as much time on this with anything else. So I really have to watch it again. It's been a very long time.
But it's interesting how it has a lot of connections to season 3, just in terms of how the story unfolds. I think if David Lynch had waited, maybe if he had waited a few years and done Inland Empire using the digital cameras we have today.
That Hasselblad he uses on Twin Peaks is a fantastic camera. It's a gorgeous camera.
What I'm saying, though, is if he had shot Inland Empire with a state-of-the-art digital camera, with a red camera a few years later, Inland Empire, good or bad, would have been respected more.
Yeah. There would have been, technically, it would have been a lot better.
It would have been a different movie, because I think part of the roughness is that camera. But it would have gone over better, I think, with audiences than basically sitting in a 200-seat movie theater watching a camcorder movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I love camcorder movies.
Cloverfield is one of my favorite movies ever.
Right, but that still was shot with higher technology than what Inland Empire.
High end, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let me go back to the chat.
That movie only came out 2 years after Inland Empire. Isn't that interesting?
So Daduda says, Cameron, how would you like the final scene to go if you could write it? Would you put red in it? I think knowing that they had that possibility, maybe, but I honestly would have, if I was having to go with what Frost and Lynch set up, I would have changed things a little differently. I would have had Cooper taking Laura, if not to the White Lodge, because when he says we're going home, I really do believe he's taking her to the White Lodge and not to the house, because we do get that shot of the smoke in the woods and everything when he's walking her through the woods. But if you were to say, no, he has to take her home, which I don't understand why he would take her home, considering that Leland would still be alive and Bob, and he would just kill her the next night. I would have just eliminated a lot of part 18. I know a lot of people love part 18, but I would eliminate a lot of it, and I would have had Cooper just take Laura. If we were going to go this way, if we actually had to go this way, I would have had Cooper take Laura to the motel room. And instead of him and Diana, I would have had it be him and Laura, because that's what we all want to see anyway, is Cooper and Laura getting it on. Like, that's like, if as it makes more sense than Cooper and Diane getting it on in the motel room.
Yeah.
And then I would have had them maybe go to the house and like, instead of them stopping to get gas, they stop at a motel for the night, and we have that moment with them in the motel night. And then in the morning they get in the car, they drive to Twin Peaks, and then we get the ending. And maybe throw red in there if you have to. But I think that would have been incredible.
Do you think the restaurant scene is essential? The Judy's restaurant scene is essential. Would you leave that, if you were to recut that episode, would you leave that in?
I think it's a good scene. I think it's an okay scene. I think it works, but I would have cut it out. I think the whole thing of frying the guns is a little, it's too off. and it really doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it really all it is just to get an address.
Yeah.
And he shoots some guys, and we could have had him shoot the guys outside Carrie Page's house. Like they could have been like the flunkies of the guy that she killed.
That I was thinking about this recently, and I'm like, is that it wasn't needed. It was, I'm sure it was one of those like Lynch images in the head, because I totally get it, especially him fighting the kind of the two cowboys.
Well, there's a lot of season 3 that is like that, though. There's a lot of season 3 that you could say, do we need it? No, we don't. Is it fine to have it in there? Sure. But I mean, if you were going to take this down to like a 3.5 hour cut, that would be a scene that I would leave out.
I get why it's there, and it's really, I don't even think it's for an address. I think it's for the moment when he fights.
Yeah, of course it
the
is.
Cowboys.
But I'm saying the ultimate ending of that scene is him just getting an address.
Yeah.
Like there's no other point to that scene except just to show him in action as a man of action and get an address. Some people have alluded to the fact that he's acting like Dirty Harry, and since it's Francesca Eastwood is the waitress, that that that's an ode to Dirty Harry. But let me tell you something. When you're in part 18 of an 18-hour film, you're not making odes to Dirty Harry in the last 45 minutes of the show. I would say the question I ask you is him driving back with Carrie Page worth 9.5 minutes of screen time?
I think for building atmosphere, I think it was great.
It's great.
I think it lets you sit with it.
Yes.
Which I really love. And some people hate it, but I think it's so well done, especially if you. Okay, so when I watched it for the first time, I watched it in a dark room. It had those 9 minutes. I didn't feel those 9 minutes. I was in the car with them. I wouldn't change that. 9 minutes. I'd make it 15.
Well,
if you can hold it.
Here's my thing about it. Does it work? It completely works. Does it build tension? It completely builds tension. It's great. I just don't think that when you do something like that it holds up after the 5th or 6th time. Mm-hmm. Because now that you know where we're going, like it works for that first time. Mm-hmm. But you better have a humdinger of a thing to be able to sit through that again and again and again, but knowing that nothing, you know what I mean? Like, yes, we get that ending, but you know what I mean? But it's like,
yeah.
But once they're not going to talk. They're not like maybe if he had peppered in just a little bit of dialogue in between the silences, I think it would be worth that 9.5 minutes again.
I think he tried to do that with the headlights in the back.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing, but when I rewatch it, unless I'm like looking like intentionally rewatching it, I'll like look away or I'll look at my phone real quick or something.
Because it's just they're just driving.
Yeah.
But if that headlights had built to a confrontation or something like that, then yes, I would say that 9.5 minutes would be worth watching again and again and again and again and again. Do I think it's bad? No, I don't. I just don't think that when that kind of thing works on the suspense one time, maybe twice, and then you have to deliver something to make us sit through that length of time again, suspense wise.
You have to like sort of, if you're going through a rewatch, you'll have to watch the episode before, so you're put into that zone, I guess, for that to work again.
Right.
But if you're just watching that as a one-off, no.
But then again, I would argue that Eyes Wide Shut has a lot of moments like that, but I don't know. I mean, like, but you're willing to let Kubrick take you there and play with your head. So, I mean, I think it works. I totally think it works. I just wonder if it works on repeated viewings for a lot of people. I know the Lynch fans will say yes, it does, but I mean for other people who,
it works for an occasional viewing. I'll probably say it's kind of like falling to sleep. Like you have to watch maybe 16 and 17 to get you in a place where that would work again, I think.
Right. I would probably agree. If you're just watching 18 by itself,
then no.
You can look at it as like a work of art and respect it that way, but I just don't know if it works as drama on several repeated viewings when you know nothing's going to happen in that moment. Like, I wish they had just thrown in just a little bit of dialogue. It doesn't have to be full on conversations, David Mamet style writing, but just something, just because then if you're peppering in little pieces of dialogue every once in a while and then went back to the silences, yes, you're creating that would be atmosphere that you would sit through again, 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 again.
It is a super interesting, especially when you have like Carrie Page kind of talking to herself. It's really great, but yeah, you have to like almost lull yourself into that for it to work on a repeated viewing. You have to build up to it.
All right. Let's see here. They're talking about Fight Club. Let's see. Robbins says, "What I want to know is, will we ever see Gremlins 3?" No, they're rebooting Gremlins. So, all right. That dude says, "Cameron, how would you write the final scene of Twin Peaks season 3?" Well, I think I kind of said that, but I honestly, this is just me. This is just me. And again, I'm not trying to take away from season 3. I love season 3. I love the ending. It works totally great. But if it was me, okay, and Lynch said, I would like you to come up with an ending to season 3. Okay, this is for good or for bad, and I understand. But the way how I would have done it, I wouldn't have ended it on a cliffhanger. I know season 1 ended on a cliffhanger, season 2 ended on a cliffhanger, season 3 ends on a cliffhanger. Firewalk with Me is the only one that kind of ends, yes, on a cliffhanger a little bit because the doppelganger's out there, but it's really the only one that has kind of a closure to it.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had Cooper stop the Black Lodge from being established instead of saving Laura. And I would have had it where it would have ended with Cooper leaving town, coming back to Twin Peaks, leaving town on February 24th, because he arrives in Twin Peaks on February 24th. Let's have him leave on February 24th. I would have ended it with Mrs. Palmer in the kitchen saying, "Laura, breakfast is ready." And instead of an empty staircase with the fan spinning, the fan is stopped, the door is opens, and Laura comes down for breakfast. I would have completely had Cooper stop everything, bring Laura's back to life. Her family is a full unit, and Cooper leaves Twin Peaks victorious. That's how I would have ended it. That's how I would have ended it.
I'm not, honestly, when I thought about it, I'm not too far from you. I wanted the fan to be present in a bigger way and to like be more pronounced. But
right. I just think that you can still do a season 4 or another story, and still kind of listen. If they had ended it with that, with Laura being reunited with her parents, Bob never was in Leland. She was never abused. And Cooper leaves town. Do you realize how much Twitter would have exploded in joy if people cried over Laura, we're going home, and that's like 5 seconds of black and white joy, and then she's whisked away. If they had ended it that way, yes, is it a happy ending? Sure. But I always maintain that Twin Peaks would have a happy ending in some way. Maybe not now because Lynch is doing his own thing. But back in the day, Racerhead ends happy. Elephant Man ends happy. It's bittersweet, but it's happy. Mm-hmm. Blue Velvet has a happy ending. Wild at Heart has a happy ending. Right? He was a big believer in the happy endings. And I just think that would have been an amazing ending. If you watch these podcasts for any length of time, you knew before season 3 that I said over and over again, Laura Palmer will be alive at the end of the season. She will be.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I wasn't totally confident in it, but I had a feeling.
Oh, I knew it because he hired Cheryl Lee to play Laura. Mm-hmm. for the beach scene and the morgue scene. And then he brought her back to play Maddie, right? And then he kills Laura off in the flashback scenes. He kills Maddie off in the living room scene. Then he brings Cheryl Lee back for Fire Walk with Me, and then kills her off again, right? And I knew she was going to come back for season 3, and I'm like, he's not going to kill her off again. If anything, he's going to bring Laura back, you know? And so I just had this feeling that like Lynch is going to bring Laura, because he has this fascination with Laura Palmer, and I knew that he would find a way to not just bring back Cheryl Lee, he would find a way to bring back Laura, and that's what he did. You know, so at the beginning when she says "I'm dead yet I live," I had so many people, you wouldn't believe how much my phone blew up. Like, how did you know? Did you read the script? I was like, no, it's just looking at the pattern of how he is with Cheryl Lee. And but
that way.
Yeah, but I just thought that maybe he was going to kill her off again, because, you know, there was all those stories when they filmed the final scene about her scream, and a lot of people thought that she was screaming in the living room, so they thought the people thought that she went inside and was killed again. And I was like, oh,
she's
God,
doing the killing this time.
Yeah,
that would have the guy on the couch.
But anyway, that's how I was. Daduda wants to know how I would have ended it. This is what I would have brought to Lynch and Frost. I would have been like, let's close it out. We can always come back and do something else. But if you end it with Laura reunited back after Leland says, find Laura, and here's Laura with her dad and her mom, nothing has happened.
But with the full knowledge of what could happen?
We would have the knowledge of what could have happened if Cooper hadn't stepped in. You know? And then you could have had Cooper join Gordon and Diane or whoever to take on now the bigger evil that they know would never came into this world, but is still out there. Because between two worlds, you know, maybe they can access it. Like that I think would have just let's close out the Laura Palmer story and take this concept of good versus evil in other dimensions and just take it elsewhere. If we want to go worldwide, let's go worldwide, but let's close out Twin Peaks.
You wouldn't have Laura know that it's her father when she gets back?
No, that's what I mean. Like he would have changed everything. Cooper would have changed it so that the timeline, instead of him saving Laura, he would have just gone back and stopped White Sands.
Oh, okay.
And so Bob never would have been inside Leland, so Laura never would have been abused. But just the image of recreating Sarah Palmer in the kitchen, Laura from the morning that we saw in the pilot, and then instead of the empty staircase, Laura's door opens and she comes down the stairs wearing the same outfit. I literally would have keeled over.
Like you have Ray Wise say, "You look nice today, honey," or something like that. She kind of like gives him a grin, and they kind of just show them eating together, and then
something. I mean,
that would have been so beautiful.
Well, Leland would have already been at the Great Northern Lodge, but just to see them as a family unit, you know, and maybe push in on that familiar family portrait that we see, but instead of Laura looking sad and upset, they're all smiling together. They're all happy together. And then instead of saying "Welcome to Twin Peaks" sign, you had Cooper now driving out of town.
Oh man,
just gives me chills. But that's how I would.
You have falling play over it.
Whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying that.
I'm just building now.
I would have walked into a room with Lynch and Frost and said, not only would this satisfy you artistically, but you would have satisfied almost every fan out there and probably won the Emmy. For sure. The show would have won the Golden Globe and the Emmy if you wrapped it around that tight and gave that kind of cathartic ending.
I think they want to still.
What?
I think they want to do something like that. They just have not said it yet.
But I'm telling you that kind of ending, whether you like it or don't like it, that's the kind of ending that wins you awards.
I believe it. Yeah.
Completely. So let me get to the chat and see how many people hate me for that ending. Hal says, and I don't think this is our Hal, but Lynch and Frost should write season 4 and let Fincher direct it. Aaron says, where is the Burr with a Broken Wing movie? It's called Financing, Aaron. So maybe I can get that going eventually. George says, Inland Empire is still better than the Phantom Menace. I can sit through the Phantom Menace. All right.
I'm not gonna comment on that.
402 says Inland Empire is my least favorite Lynch movie. If the scenes were good, the structure wouldn't have bothered me so much, but there are so many scenes that are just not interesting. Anna says, I've never actually gotten all the way through Inland Empire. I need to, but as yet, it just hasn't happened. Let's see. Cop says, Cameron, I just watched Wrong Turn 6 and noticed those missing persons pictures were blurred out. Obviously not the unrated version that you gave out today. Joe, you know about this? Let me show you this. I gave this away yesterday for one of the Patreon supporters. So if you are a Patreon supporter, you get access to contests and gifts and giveaways. This is one I gave away yesterday. Wrong Turn 6 Last Resort, because this movie, some brainiac on the team went around and filmed real missing persons posters as being the victims of the killers in this movie.
No way.
And 20th Century Fox didn't vet it, and so this movie got released. And then when family members found out about it, this thing got ripped off the shelves, and they had to re-edit and do a bunch of stuff. But this is the original uncut, brand new factory seal of the one with the real missing people in it. So anyway, someone won this last night. So it took so much work to get that out of Best Buy. Let me tell you, because they told me it came up on the computer. You cannot sell this to a customer. And I was like, oh, well, I can't remember how I did, but I did something where I did some I don't know why they would say that. That's ridiculous, So they ended up doing something where they typed in some management code, and I got it. But it was some massive scheming trying to get that thing out of the store.
That's bizarre that they won't even sell it.
No, because 20th Century Fox pulled it, but they didn't notify the Best Buys and Targets to pull it off their shelves. So I went around to all the stores and started snagging them up. Just like that movie. What is that? Mandy Moore shark movie? What's that one that came out? I can't remember.
No.
It was something else. I can't remember what it is. But that movie,
47 meters down.
Yeah, that movie came out a year before as a Target exclusive on DVD under a different title. And so when it was in the theater as 47 meters down, you could just go to Target and buy it on the DVD shelf. It was called something else. I can't remember what it was, but it was on Target shelves for like 6 months.
Wow.
Even when it was in the theater, but it was called something else. Look up the just original title, 47 meters down. But I thought that was fascinating that people were in the theater going to see it, and you could just go to Target and buy it for $6.99.
It was called In the Deep.
Yeah, In the Deep. But yeah, so if you're ever at Target, every once in a while you might see it In the Deep DVD still on the shelf, and that is the original cut of 47 meters down. So
it was released almost a full year before on DVD before it went into theaters.
Yes, it was. Stig Sleda says, thank you for the show, Cameron. I love it. Love Lynch films for many years. Love from Norway. Oh, thank you so much. Let's see. Anna says, maybe Lynch likes that people are left to seek it out, Inland Empire.
I'm sure.
Jared T says, why does he have shiny music in Inland Empire? Well, he likes that kind of music. I mean, even in season 3, we get the ode to Hiroshima, right? Mm-hmm. During the atom bomb sequence.
Like the scratchy violins and stuff.
Oh, Cindy says Inland Empire is available on DVD through Netflix if you still do the disc mail thing.
Oh.
I'm sure now that you've mentioned that, someone will not return it now. So, Addison said those rabbit scenes are the stuff of nightmares. Those laugh tracks are horrifying. Cynic Kill says the spotlight scene with Laura Dern running up to the camera screaming gets me every time in Inland Empire.
Yeah, the DVDs are.
Alexander says the penny Red showed Richard Horn and the penny young Sarah find are one and the same. There's more to Red than we know. For sure.
Oh, I forgot about that. Nice.
Let's see. Stig says, I always loved when the Norwegians were in Twin Peaks in the pilot and spoke my language. Cool to hear. My favorite show. Um, let's see here. Addison says Cameron's ending would make season 3 completely rewatchable, but instead we are left with a show that has so many storylines with no resolution or very little payoff. Keeps me from rewatching it in its entirety. Do you find that, Joey? Do you find that season 3 is hard to rewatch as a full piece of work, or do you just go back and rewatch certain scenes and moments?
I mean, I haven't really tried it yet. I definitely watch, like, I could watch 1 through 4 all the time. I've seen it, so I've probably seen that block the most. 5 through 8, probably definitely not as much. Almost everything 8 and on, I could rewatch maybe. I don't know. I haven't, honestly, I've not watched it all the way through since last summer.
Isn't that interesting? But like, people rewatch season 1 and season 2 all the time. So what do you think it is about season 3 that keeps people from? I know there's the Lynch fans that do consume it on a daily basis and watch it over and over again, but what is it about season 3 that kind of keeps you at arm's distance, that just doesn't make you want to just dive in over and over again like season 1 and 2? I would argue that season 3 is different than season 1 and 2, because season 1 and 2 you can have on the background while you're doing other stuff. The music's cool. It's just got a jazzy vibe to it. You know, season 3 is like you have to like completely engage with it.
Now that we have that context of what Mark Frost said, like it being basically a novel on film, it's like, would you just start a book in the middle, like on chapter 10 or something? Thinking of it in that way it gives it a lot more. Like there's a good reason why you can't just jump into it like that.
Anna says season 1 and 2 are much easier to dip into
because that's like a TV show proper.
Halzak says season 3 is probably my favorite season of Twin Peaks. I'll stop spanning. Again, like I don't think I have a favorite season of Twin Peaks. I think that each one of them is very good to great in their own way. Like season 1 is so different than season 2, so different than Fire Walk with Me, and so different from season 3. Every incarnation is different.
I always say this, but it took me 3 watches to get into Twin Peaks. I couldn't get into it the first 2 times I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had the context of other David Lynch movies, and I gave it a shot, and then it obviously became one of my favorite shows ever. So,
and this is actually the 3rd time you've shaved this week too, right?
Somebody else commented, they're like, "Didn't you just shave?" And I was like, "A week and a half ago," but.
Mark says, I actually find myself watching season 3 more often on rewatch than seasons 1 and 2. Maybe because it's just a year old, but I love watching season 3. I think also it's because season 3, at least on its surface, suggests multiple viewings because there's more to explore.
Yeah.
Season 1 and 2 are, compared to season 3, season 1 and 2 are pretty right in your face. You know what I mean? Let's see. Addison says, exactly. Season 1 and 2 I could watch on a loop. Season 3 is such a time investment for so many storylines that lead nowhere. See, some people are very upset about that. Let's see. Anna says, I don't really see a distinction between 1 and 2 because I watched it all together.
Yeah, that's also true.
I can understand that, but you have to see it from this perspective, is that in season 1, David Lynch actually shows Cooper going to bed and having a dream and then waking up from that dream, right? Season 2 is all of a sudden, that's when giants appear. And that's when, like, season 1 is very much like mystery, horror, comedy together like this, right? Season 2 ups the horror and ups the comedy. So it's not like it just upped the horror and then downplayed the comedy. The comedy gets much more broad and outrageous, and the horror gets much more graphic. And
the horror gets comedic.
It can. But I'm just saying that, like, season 2 takes season 1's balance and kicks it into almost a Grand Guignol type of, huge operatic thing of good versus evil. Season 1 is not about good versus evil.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery that explores the possibility of evil in our world. Season 2 says, no, there are spirits. There are good spirits. There are bad spirits. Okay, now we're talking almost on a biblical level of what we're doing. That right there makes season 2 different than season 1.
That's why season 2 is what makes Twin Peaks a religion almost.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like season 1 by itself, I think is a great show. Season 2, while some people say, "Oh, I don't like season 2," like even the cast members say, "I don't like season 2," but season 2 is what created the mythology of Twin Peaks. There is no real mythology of Twin Peaks in season 1. There's just a really great story of the darkness underneath the facade of a small town America. It's very much Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
7 episodes of Blue Velvet. And it works. It's great. It's a masterpiece. Season 1 is a masterpiece. Season 2 is, like I said, it just kicks it into overdrive. And you may not like it. You may not like it. You might like aspects of it. But like I said, there is not one unwatchable episode of Twin Peaks. None. You may not
start saying, sorry.
No, I'm just saying you might not like some subplots, or you might like this scene or whatever, but there's no unwatchable episode of Twin Peaks.
You're right. I agree.
I mean, there's so many shows that you can watch and go like, yeah, I kind of skipped those couple episodes. They're kind of just bad. There's always something in an episode of Twin Peaks that's not worth skipping over. So, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, when did they start saying the owls are not what they seem?
That's season
2. That's when they didn't say it at all in season 1?
No, not at all.
Okay. I just wasn't sure.
Daddy says, what would your 3-hour cut of Twin Peaks season 3 would look like? I don't know. I would, the thing I would do is, like, I know some people would, like they would just cut out all this other stuff and make it all about this or all about that. What I would do is I would try to do kind of like what they did, when I started talking about this episode, we talked about Scenes from a Marriage, the Ingmar Bergman film, the 5-hour cut, and they cut it down to a 3-hour theatrical cut. Now, obviously, Twin Peaks season 3 is much bigger than a 5-hour cut. But the thing is, though, is that people who watched the 3-hour cut theatrically didn't know there was a 5-hour version. And I think that would be the key. If you were to create a fan cut of something like season 3, and you wanted to distill it down, you would have to figure out a way to do it that completely honors what Mark Frost and David Lynch were trying to do, at the same time bringing it down to a watchable, manageable length. So that doesn't mean you just concentrate on Cooper. It doesn't mean you just take out all these subplots over here. It's, okay, how do you completely let the film live and breathe unto itself and yet still bring it down? That's what a great editor does. Figure out what the intentions of the filmmaker are and bring that to fruition, while at the same time, though, not letting your legs hit paralysis while you're sitting there watching it. So,
maybe one day we'll all do our own cut.
Yeah, but it'd be fascinating. Every single one of us would have a different version, completely different version of it. But I wouldn't go in there necessarily. Yes, I would cut out maybe some scenes here and there, but I would go in there and I'm like what's called a frame cutter. Like, I would go in there and just take out a second here, a second there, and you would never know that I trimmed out a second. But overall, you take out enough seconds right there, you eliminate 1 hour.
Yeah, I believe it.
You know what I mean? So, okay. Let's take some last questions before we go. This has gone on a little longer than I expected, Joey.
Yeah, it's almost 8 here.
Oh, good Lord. Cobb says Leland's Destiny still gives me goosebumps. The acting is perfect. I would agree.
Get him that Emmy.
Yeah. And Mark says Twin Peaks is the best show ever. So let's just conclude it there. Anyway, this has been really fun. Because I said, Joey, let's talk about this Mark Frost article. And I think that this article and our discussions today, is really awesome.
We haven't done a deep dig and discussion like this in a while, so it feels refreshing to me.
It does. It feels almost cathartic.
Yeah.
So hopefully we gave you a lot to chew on, and let us know in the comments what you think. And it's been truly awesome. So
he gave us a little bit of string, and we just stretched it the hell out, and I think had a good conversation.
This has probably been one of the best Twin Peaks conversations I've had in a long time, because there was actually something to discuss.
Exactly. I'm with you.
All right, Joey, where can people find you on the internet?
All right. So Twitter and Instagram, I'm on all the time, so you could follow me there at Joey Pedras. And you could search the same thing on YouTube, and you'll find my YouTube channel with all kinds of Twin Peaks videos and a bunch of other stuff. So check that out.
What you got coming up? Anything?
Well, we're doing an E3 wrap-up video, which I hope to have sometime this week. I also have footage from Utah, my Utah trip, that I'm still editing together. It's a lot of just videos of mountains and stuff, so there's a lot there. But
just throw in Gonzo behind you. Just throw in a shot of Gonzo into the Utah thing, and
I'll make it really surreal with Gonzo in Utah.
There you go.
Mountains of Utah.
Well, that's awesome. So make sure to subscribe to Joey's channel. I'm gonna have to do this fast because Mr. C over here is waking up after. Anyway, I can't believe he lasted this whole conversation. But anyway, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't. You know, since I started up the Patreon thing, I've already lost 4 subscribers. So they're like, hey, I didn't sign up to be pitched to.
Oh boy,
Mr. C, hang on 1 second. Anyway, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Become a Patreon supporter. Support Obnoxious Anonymous. Help this channel grow. I gotta go. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Take care, guys. I gotta go before he starts spitting up Garmin Bozia. Have a great day.